NBA Showtime, NBA on NBC on the Game Boy Color. It is a 2v2 basketball game released by Midway in the year 2000 in North America. You control one player and the other player on your team is controlled by a bot, but you can give him some commands. If you have the ball, you can pass or shoot. Based on speed and distance, your player will dunk the ball when shooting. Without the ball, you can tackle and do a jump block. There are 3 modes. Season, which lets you play a full season against other teams, but you have to win every game, saved by a password system. Exhibition, which lets you play a single match against a CPU on different courts. And playoffs that are a tournament. For the Game Boy Color, the graphics are very good. The sprites look good, it's very colorful, and the UI is clean. Putting the remaining time of the court in the background was a good idea to keep the screen clear. I like that the logo of the home team is on the court. The music, on the other hand, is getting old very quickly. There's more or less just one track that plays all the time. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is lacking depth. There's just not much to do. The game modes are basically all the same and not many possibilities in the match. Mostly you sprint, you can do that by holding the start button, to the other side and just dunk the ball in. The different courses like Street and the Jungle are a nice addition, but it's just a reskin. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Overall I was bored quickly, but it looks beautiful, it has a lot of different dunking animation which is nice, and if you're a basketball fan you might have some fun with it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Croc 2. Croc 2 is a Zelda-like puzzle adventure game with some jump and run elements, made by Argonaut Software and published by Fox Interactive. The game was released in Europe and North America in 2001 and is a sequel to Croc 1. In the game you can play as a crocodile that can jump and do a spin attack. The story of the game is that Croc is looking for his mother. The story is not relevant and the levels in the game have not much to do with the overall story. In every level you solve some problem that the people of the hub world have. There are 4 hub worlds with different settings, and in every hub world there are 3 small levels that you can do in any order and a boss fight. In the levels you need to collect all the gems to see the real ending. I didn't do that. For saving the game, it is using a password system. The presentation is fine, the sprites are big and have nice colors. The 4 different worlds all have a distinctive look. Sadly, the small levels inside of one world all looks mostly the same. There's also not much variety when it comes to sprite of NPCs. Different hub worlds all have their own color scheme, but that's about it. Not much more to say about the graphic. It is okay, and the sound is also okay. Every world has a theme, and during my playthrough I was not so annoyed by the music that I would turn it off. The gameplay on the other hand is having a lot of problems. While the controls are fine, the puzzles are uncreative and repetitive. There are basically 4 puzzles: pushing blocks, pushing buttons in the same order as a light, mathematical equations, and mazes with the solution as a text block in the beginning. Most of the time I was just running around with no orientation in the level and did the puzzles without thinking about what solving the riddle would actually bring. There are just 2 types of enemies, one that is shooting at you and one that is charging at you. The 2 types look a little bit different in each world, but that's it. The 4 bosses are also nothing special, and the last boss is even recycling the mechanic of the first. Additionally, there can be very tight jumps in the levels that are difficult to see. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I saw an IGN review of the game with a score of 8 and I really don't agree. It has boring levels, boring puzzles, and the only challenge in the level is to find the right way. Deja Vu 1 and 2, the casebooks of Ace Harding. This is a point-and-click collection and a remake of 2 NES games. Made by ICOM Simulations and published by Mindscape and Kemco. In the USA and Japan the game released in the end of 1999 and in Europe in 2000. In the game you play as Ace Harding, a private detective that, in the first game, lost his memories and trying to find out who he is, who did it and why. The story takes place in Chicago in 1942 and is a typical detective investigator story. The presentation is fine. I like the music and the graphics are good too. Everything is clearly recognizable. Nothing special to say about the graphics, but I think for a point-and-click game on the Game Boy Color the graphics are doing the job quite well. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. Gameplay can be a bit tedious. All the time you need to switch between the different commands to open doors and to move through them. A lot of items are containers with more items in them that you have to open and then take the items from the item. That's unnecessarily exhausting. Besides that, the controls work fine and the riddles in the game are possible to solve. Sometimes a little bit easy and sometimes I had no idea what to do without a guide, especially shooting logs with a gun. You can easily die or get arrested depending on where you go or what you do. That can feel a bit cheap sometimes, but in that case you can always go one screen back if you hit continue. The game has a battery save for multiple save games. You can get stuck if you have no money to pay the taxi drivers, so be careful about that. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you like classic point-and-click adventures. I think that kind of game aged not as good as other genres. If you like classic point-and-click games, then these 2 games might be something for you. Overall, I give the game 3 out of 5 points. Hello Kitty No Happy House on the Game Boy Color. This game released on the 2nd of March 2002 exclusively in Japan, published by MTO. There's no translation patch and I don't speak Japanese, but I think I understood what the game is about. It is a virtual dollhouse kind of game. You see the Hello Kitty running around in a house doing different animations. You can interact with Kitty and with various objects in the house. There's 3 different minigames: sorting books, taking care of plants, and catching apples. Then minigames can be played in 3 difficulties and you get points for them, which unlocks new furniture that you can place around the house. The furniture placement is very limited. There are 5 slots in which you can only put certain things. The presentation is fine. The kitty sprite is big and the animations are recognizable. The music is also upbeat and at least in my 30-minute playtime not too annoying. While the sprite looks fine, there's just not much to see in the game. There are only still images of interactions with different characters. There's just a kitty sprite running around the house and that's it. The house itself is also not very big and kind of boring. I give the presentation a 2 out of 5. There is not much in terms of gameplay. There are 3 minigames and besides that it is watching Kitty run around and doing mostly nothing. I understand that there's a market for that kind of game and the target audience were clearly children, but still, just 3 minigames? That is low. Maybe there are more if you play more, but I doubt it. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I see no reason for anyone to play that game. Even if you speak Japanese and you're a big Hello Kitty fan, I don't think the game is worth your time. There's nothing to do. I agree with the title of the game, Hello Kitty No Happy House. Second Space on the original Game Boy. This game released in 1993 in Asia and was made by the Chinese company Sachen. This game is an unlicensed Game Boy game. The genre of the game is hard to describe. I would call it a Pac-Man clone. You play as a car, the levels have white blocks and black blocks. On the black blocks you can drive, which makes them grey. If all the black blocks around such a white block are grey, the white block transforms in a game-pausing animation to a background image. That's it, you can just move around. There are 2 different speed settings to make the game more interesting. Every 5 stages you get the great reward of seeing the background image complete, and you get a different background image and a new background track. The presentation of the game sucks. There are mostly different colored blocks and nothing more. In the start screen I thought my Game Boy broke. The music can be a bit annoying and there's just one background image that changes all 5 stages is low. At least the enemies have different sprites. I'll give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is not really there. The game is a bad Pac-Man clone. The enemies are boring and you just drive around, and for what? To see the same background image that you already saw parts of for 5 stages runtime completely. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is barely a game. I get why that didn't get licensed. It sucks. I give the game overall 1 of 5 points because it is working. B-Rally Championship Edition on the original Game Boy. This game is a port of a PlayStation 1 game, was developed by Vilas in Dubai, and released exclusively in Europe in 1998. B-Rally is a racing game. You always start at position 10, and if you're doing good at dodging the obstacles that spawn beneath and sometimes on the street, you will catch up to the other cars and make your way to position 1. The game features 4 playable cars with different stats and 10 maps. The maps have different streets, background images and obstacles. Some tracks even have special weather. In England, for example, it rains. There are 2 modes, Arcade and Championship. In the Arcade mode, you play in every level a few different tracks and you need to survive by reaching certain checkpoints before your time runs out. If you pass, you unlock the next level. To save, the game uses a password system. In the Championship mode, you play different tracks and you get points depending on your position and your time. The game looks great. In the selection screens, the cars rotate and have a 3D look to them. The tracks all look nice and have unique obstacles. Tracks even have little mountains to go up. You can do jumps and have an accident with an animation. We are talking about the original Game Boy. For that console, the graphics are perfect. The background music in the menu is nice, but sadly there's no background music during the driving. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very arcade-like. You try to take the curves good and avoid the obstacles without losing speed, and from time to time you pass a car. If you have an accident, most likely the other car will overtake you again. The maps and cars all feel a bit different from each other, and the game is a lot of fun. The other cars feel more like obstacles and checkpoints and not really like other drivers, but that is often the case in such arcade races. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes.
Woo!
This game is getting everything out of the hardware of the Game Boy. Try it, it's a lot of fun. If you're missing the colors, then try the Game Boy Color version. We didn't review it yet, but I'm sure we will somewhere, when the lucky wheel decides so. Jiki no Gashbell, Yujo no Sakaru Dream Tech Tournament on the Game Boy Advance. The game is based on the manga Zechbell. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. I don't know the manga, the game is in Japanese, and there was no translation pledged, so I will only review the game based on what I see. The game is a typical fighting game with a tech mechanic. You choose 2 fighters in the beginning. There are actually 2 modes how to play the game. A single fighter mode where you select one of your 2 fighters and fight with him all rounds, and a 2 fighter mode where you can choose which fighter you want to have in each round. In the single fighter mode you can customize a character with 3 points that you can put into attack, defense or special moves. Fighters can do basic combo, different special moves, 2 assist, 1 per character and 1 based on the partner, and an ultimate move. There are a lot of fighters and stages to unlock. The game looks nice. It has a clean style with good looking sprites and nice backgrounds. The moves look mostly good and the ultimate attacks have a cool start animation. Sometimes the background can look a little bit too much like just a picture. Not in every background is a lot going on and the background characters don't react to what's happening. The fights that happen in the foreground can feel a bit out of place. The music feels like typical anime music, but it's not bad. Many fighters are little children, which maybe makes sense as a manga, but for characters in a fighting game it wouldn't be my first choice. But there's quite some variety in the fighters. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The game feels a bit slow and there's just one basic combination. The Game Boy Advance just has 2 face buttons and one is used for jumping, so there's just one other for the basic combination. The timing when you press the attack button can prolong the combination a bit, and you can sometimes change the combination with special attacks or assist, but it's still just one basic combination. Besides that, the fighting feels good and is fun. The customization before a fight is a fun idea. There are also little mini games in the arcade mode to bring a bit variety. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you're a fan of the manga and or speak Japanese. I think without the connection to the manga and the language, there are better alternatives on the Game Boy Advance. Gives the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Carrera Power Slide on the Game Boy Advance. This game was made by Tiertex Design Studios and released 2003 exclusively in Europe. It is a Carrera racing game. In the game there are different modes to play. In the season mode you earn money and you can upgrade your cars and buy new ones. In time attack you can try to get the best time against the ghosts of your last rounds, and in create a track you can create a track. The game is an authentic Carrera experience, which means that the only controls you have is pressing A to speed up. If you have too much speed, you fly out of the curves. The presentation is bad. It starts with a boring intro and it just gets worse from there. The game itself is in a top-down view, which makes sense. The cars and all the other assets are not looking very good. I don't know what happened to the 3, 2, 1 icons before the race starts. They look cheap, like they were made in paint. There's no background music during the racing at all. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is pressing A long enough to have good speed, but not too long to not fly out of the curves. This is literally a Mario Party minigame and not a good one. The boards fly out of the curves all the time, and even in the demo scene no one is patient enough to drive slowly. But the worst part is the create a track mode. While the mode is a great idea and makes sense in the whole Carrera setting, in the game it sucks so hard. You always put one piece of track after the other and you need to shift with L and R through different pieces that change based on the piece before. The problem is aligning the last piece of your track with the start to make the lap complete. I tried multiple times and never got the parts to align. There is no autocomplete or anything like that. I cannot imagine anyone enjoying making a track with that. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Not even for the greatest Carrera fan. I don't know who the audience for that game is. Fans of Carrera most likely have a Carrera track and should rather play with that. People that are no fans of Carrera will not like the game because it sucks. So no one should play that game. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Card game on the original Game Boy. This game with the at the same time clear and unclear title was developed by Marionette and released exclusively in Japan in 1990. In this early Game Boy game you can play 3 different card games: 5-card draw poker, blackjack and page 1. Additionally, you can let the game tell you your future. We will do that on later. I am very happy with the presentation. It is an early Game Boy game, but all the important information is all the time visible and that while keeping the screen clear. The cards are easy to see, and in page 1 you can see the direction, the multiplayer to draw hand cards, and the wish towards the suit should change. There's even background music during playing, not even all the Game Boy Advance games have that. I think the presentation is doing nothing too special, but a very solid job. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you expect. The card games were good and you have a high score showing your winnings. The game even comes with a 2-player hot seat mode. The score cannot be saved. Only thing that was hard to figure out was how to save page 1 before playing the second to last card in page 1. It is by holding the select button while playing the card. If you don't do that, you need to draw 3 more cards again. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Before we get to the important question, let's see my fortune. Okay, I have poor health, high money, poor strength, and good knowledge, and my color to wear is green. In total, my fortune is sad man. At least I got high money. I knew that channel will be a success. Thank you, Card Game, for proving it. If you want to see your own fortune, write in the comment and I'll add Card Game also to your fortune. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? I guess. If you want to play poker, blackjack or page 1 on the Game Boy, then sure, it is a well-made version of that. But it is exactly that. Not more, not less. I give the game 3 out of 5 points. GB Genjin 2, also known in the US as Bonk's Revenge, and BC Kid 2 in Europe on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Red Company and released 1994 with different titles in Japan, the US and in Europe. The game has extra colors on the Super Game Boy, and that's also the version you see in this review. It is a sequel to GB Genjin 1, Bonk's Adventure, or BC Kid 1, depending on the region. Apparently the world's split in half and it is for you to save the world, I guess. Besides the intro and the outro, there's literally no story. You play Bonk, a caveman baby that uses his head to defeat enemies. He can run, jump, headbutt, climb and crawl. If Bonk eats meat, he transforms randomly into one out of 3 versions. Master Bonk, who can jump further, Monster Bonk, who can defeat enemies easier, and Stealth Bonk, who can break into doors to get different boni. There are 6 levels, and in every level there are multiple smaller screens and at least one boss. The last level is a boss gauntlet against all other 5 bosses and the end boss. The presentation of the game is really good. The sprites have great humor and the graphics in total are well made. I like the animations, like the crawling animation, and that Bonk can change its appearance based on the meat. The music is okay. That the UI has that cave look to it, and that little Bonk sprite when you press pause shows that the game was made with an eye for details. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is really fun, and the controls work good. I always felt in control of Bonk during my playthrough. The lack of a story is a little problem, because you go from one level to the other and suddenly you are underwater or in a cave or on a train, but you have no idea why. I like that they put a lot of variety in the levels, but sometimes it felt like the levels are not using the mechanics very well. The most levels are very easy, and while they have settings like underwater or in space, which change the physics a bit, the game never really felt different to play. The same problems exist with the upgrades. Because it is random which one you get, the levels never use the abilities much. The bosses are mostly beaten by spamming the attack, and it is a bit disappointing that the final level is a boss gauntlet of the previous bosses. In such a short game, it took me around 1 hour to finish it, I don't need to see the same bosses twice. The last level is also the most difficult, because you will run someone out of lives. And after that you start near at the beginning of the level. Besides the problems, the game is a fun playthrough. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a fun short playthrough and worth the hour it takes. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Contra Spirits, also known as Contra the Alien Wars in the US and Probotector 2 in the EU, on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Factor 5 as a port of the SNES version and released in 1994 in the US and Japan and in 1995 in the EU. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added a few colors and better sound. Aliens attacked the Earth and now it's time for revenge. The game is a run and gun. You run, jump, climb and crawl around while shooting everything that moves. To do that there are different weapons like a flamethrower or a shotgun that you pick up as upgrades. Every second level is from a top-down view. There are 5 levels in total, each with a boss at the end, and the game is saved via password system. The game looks good. I like the enemy designs, especially the bosses. For the scope of the Game Boy, the bosses look quite epic. The player sprite is looking good too, and it always feels like a lot is going on the screen. To allow that amount of sprites, the sprite flicker if a lot is going on. The background on the first stage with the broken city looks nice, but in the later stages the background was sometimes just plain white. The music is good and there are multiple tracks. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The game is hard. Already in the first level I died off and needed to hit continue multiple times. At the same time you always feel in control of the character, so you don't have the feeling that the game is unfair. The running, jumping and shooting feels good and the game doesn't lag even if a lot is going on. The top-down stages were a bit boring and the objectives in both of them are the same. Find some things and destroy them. At least you get directions where the things are. I'm very impressed with the controls. They are the most important thing in such a run and gun game, and they managed to get them done perfectly. Sadly the game is with 5 levels, 2 of them top-down. A bit short. Only the high difficulty makes it feel longer. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you like run and gun games. The game is very well made and fun to play, but just if you like the genre. If you don't, you will easily get frustrated by the high difficulty. The game is easier than its SNES counterpart, but that doesn't make it easy. Groove Adventure Rave. Hikari to Yami no Daikessen on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by KCEJ and released 2002 exclusively in Japan. The game is a platform fighter and based on the manga Rave Master or The Groove Adventure Rave. This game does a lot of things different than other fighters. It is more like a platform fighter with more free movement. You can do normal attacks, a double jump and special attacks. The HP bars of the fighters, 2 or 4 fighters are in one fight, are linked to each other. If one player makes damage, his part of the HP bar grows and the part of the other player gets smaller. When a certain size of HP bar is reached, the player is flashing and can do a special move. After succeeding in a button mash minigame against the other players, that player wins. If you get hit in a match, you can lose your item. If you lose the item, you need to pick it up again, or you cannot do special moves and the game finishing move. The opponent cannot pick your item up, but can move it around without attacks. The game looks fine, but nothing special. There are 8 stages. They look good, but are a bit boring. In such a platform fighter, the stage is a big part of the game and should have been more interesting. The stages are also still images. Nothing happens in them during the fight. The intro and the menu are quite boring too, and the finishing cutscenes all look similar. While the game doesn't look bad, it also feels to impress in any way. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay has a lot of unique system, especially that you can lose your item to do the special moves and that the opponent can keep you away from it is very cool. I'm not a big fan of that button mashing minigame to finish the match. That gets old pretty quickly. What I miss during the gameplay is everything beyond the basics. The stages don't do anything, there are no items, and the possibilities to combo are not big. You have one basic combo, and besides that, the only combo starter I found was punching someone in the air and hit him once or twice in the air. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is doing nothing bad, it works and it has some nice ideas. Sadly, the game is also not doing anything very good. I never had real fun, so I don't see any reason to play that game. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Atlantis, The Lost Empire on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Eurocom and released in Europe and North America in 2001. The game is based on the Disney movie Atlantis. It's a puzzle jump and run game in which you run, jump, swim and climb through 10 levels. At Radius you can change between different characters and all characters have some unique actions they can do. Some can solve riddles, others can explode things or build a helicopter or drone. To fight, every character has a basic attack and a unique weapon that can be found in the levels. The levels follow the basic plot of the movie, but besides that there is no story. The game looks really cool. They went with the sprites for a more realistic look. Sure, a rare style on the Game Boy Color, but it is looking good and I like the sprites. Levels, including the foreground and backgrounds, are really nice too, and the music track is good. Sadly, there are not many different tracks. The enemies can sometimes look from the colors a bit too close to the ground, especially the spiders can be hard to see. The opening level screens look like they got ripped from the movie, and they just look like a pixelated mess. The UI is also very basic. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The controls are fluid and I like that the characters can hold and climb up a ledge. The basic movement feels quite good. If you have to jump on platforms on the other hand, it can be hard to control. The basic style of the game is finding the end of the level and change the characters from time to time to make the way free with the unique actions. That works fine. Often the problem is that the radio to change the character is just on the way to the next puzzle and you can just change the character to one other character, so you do that because you know that's what you have to do without seeing the next puzzle. Sometimes the game is solving itself in a way. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a fun playthrough that doesn't take too long. The presentation of the game is very nice and the puzzles are not always so challenging, but fine. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Sugar Sugar Rune, Heart ga Ippai Mogi Gakuen on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by OpenSesame and released exclusively in Japan in the year 2005. It is based on the manga Sugar Sugar Rune. In the game you play as a witch that competes with another witch to get the most hearts from boys. I don't know, but that's the story. It is some kind of dating game in a way. It is hard for me to describe the game. You can even create your own boys to get the hearts from. The presentation of the game is boring. Most of the game are just plain background images, manga characters telling you something. There are not many animations, and the ones that are there are not very good. The presentation just sucks. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay, on the other hand, sucks even more. It's translated the game to understand what is going on, and I played the game longer than anyone ever should just to see if I missed something, but no. The gameplay is deciding between different rooms or streets, and there you will meet a boy and you can interact in the hope to make the boy like you more. After some time you can collect the heart of the boy, and from time to time you see a ranking who got more hearts, you or the other witch. Every half an hour there's some lazy minigame, like choosing which of the 2 boxes have more or less things in them. That's it. The only thing that is a little bit more than the absolute necessary is that you can create the boys yourself. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Really, please don't. I'm sure I'm already on some kind of watch list because I played it, but I didn't know it better. You do. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Turrican on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys and released in the US and Europe in 1991. It is a run-and-gun game in which you shoot yourself through 10 levels, killing aliens. The levels are quite big and more free-roam with different ways to go. There are multiple weapons you can use. You have a normal gun that gets upgraded with power-ups you can collect on the levels, a laser that can shoot in a 360-degree angle, and multiple special weapons. The most unique special weapon is turning yourself into a buzzsaw. The game looks okay. In the most levels you just have a plain background, also the foregrounds are mostly very basic. The player sprite is fine, but nothing special. The enemies can be hard to see, they are often just like a pixelated mess. Later in the levels that play inside you have some basic but cool looking backgrounds. In total it can be difficult to see what's going on. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay has some issues. While the normal running and shooting is fine, you can just shoot up with the laser, but to activate the laser you need to press and hold shooting, and in that time you cannot move. A lot of enemies come from up and hitting them is difficult. The jumping also doesn't feel so good. The main issue here is that platforms are often directly over each other. The game is not using that you can go through them from one side kind of platform. So you have to do an awkward left-right jump. There's also no hit animation. You just lose life, but you don't really know why. The more open level design is cool, but I have the feeling that the limitations of the game gets highlighted by the design. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a bit unfair to compare the game to Cobra the Alien Wars because they are 4 years apart, but they are the same genre and Cobra is just doing it so much better. The movement and controls feel more fluid there. If you want to play a run-and-gun game on the Game Boy, I would say stick with Cobra the Alien Wars. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Outstanding job, Sarge. Please stand by for further orders. HQ out.
Army Man 2 on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Digital Eclipse and released in the US and Europe in 2000. It is a sequel to Army Man 1. In this action shooting game, you control a green plastic soldier that is fighting against a tan-colored plastic army in different levels. Every level has multiple objectives that you do one after each other. In the game you can collect and use multiple weapons like assault rifles, mortars, grenades and flamethrowers. Additionally, you can go in and control vehicles like tanks and jeeps. I like the presentation of the game. In the beginning I was feeling a bit motion sick by playing the game, especially in the bootcamp tutorial mission. The screen constantly vibrates, which is annoying. After a while I overcame that feeling, and since then I could appreciate the graphics. The surroundings look nice and colorful, the soldiers itself are a bit of a pixelated mess, but you quickly get used to it. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game has a very addictive gameplay. The objectives have the perfect length to keep you engaged, and the new areas to discover are fun. The weapons work fine, but have some wonky qualities. For example, can you shoot with the assault rifle as soon as the old projectile exploded? That means that you can shoot very close to an enemy very fast, making it next to the flamethrower the strongest weapon. The game has a great working map, where you can see all the enemies so that you know where you need to go. Even though the most objectives are just killing all enemy soldiers, it is really fun. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Even though I didn't expect it in the beginning, that game is fun. Play it, you won't regret that short playthrough. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. On the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Jupiter and released 2005 exclusively in Japan. It is a JRPG based on the manga Elemental Gelade. In the game you go with your party of 5 from one place to the other over the world map and fight against everything that attacks you. The game uses a special fighting system. In every turn you have 5 faces of seemingly random of your party members on the bottom that you can use to attack. You can combine them to make different attacks or even fuse with each other. The world map of the game is a little bit lame, and the game is full of dialogue that just happens in front of a still image. At least you can see the mouses move and have different emotions during the talking. In the fights the attack animations are not very interesting, and even combined the animations often just get played right after each other. When fusing there's a special anime-like cutscene. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very dialogue heavy. Between every action is so much text that you cannot skip. The fighting system is fine, but also not so interesting. I like the idea of the characters combining, but since the moves don't look so interesting, it is not so much fun. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I didn't see what makes the game stand out. If you know the anime and you can read Japanese, you might have more fun with it than I had. But get ready to read a lot. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Ultraman Shotoshi Kikiden on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Angel and released in 1994 exclusively in Japan. The footage for this review is from the Super Game Boy version that added extra colors and better music. In the game you jump, fly and fight as Ultramans through different levels. There are platformer levels, level where you're flying through space, and boss fights. You can do base attacks and different special moves. The game looks, especially in the Super Game Boy version, very nice. The Ultraman sprite is big and quite detailed. The level designs on the other hand are very basic. One problem is that the enemy render distance is too short. Even enemies that should be on your current screen are not always visible if you're too far away. The music is great, it's upbeat and always pushing you forward. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is fun. The levels have some variety and never overstays their welcome. Before you get annoyed by a level, it is already over. The jumping feels a bit floaty and the fights can be won by spamming, but they're still fun. The game is with 25 minutes very short. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It got some clear issues, but it's a short and fun playthrough. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder, also known in Japan as Jurassic Park 3 Kyo Ryu ni Ai ni Iko, on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Konami and released in 2001. It is based on the Jurassic Park movie series. In the game you build a dinosaur park, get as many visitors as possible and try to find and create all 140 dinosaurs. To do that, you can build different shops and restaurants, send exploring teams to find amber, and let your researchers create eggs out of the found DNA in the amber. The game looks fine. It has a cute and colorful cartoon style. The dinosaurs don't all have unique sprites, but get a sprite based on the type and size of the dinosaur. The visitors don't have many different sprites, but I think that's okay. Sadly, there are also not many different shops and restaurants or hotels, and the decoration items are also not many. So you cannot really create a unique park. The music is okay, but on repeat quickly annoying. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game has a lot of different things to do, like managing the park, getting the DNA and creating new dinosaurs. Sadly, all these things are very one-dimensional. They are not very interesting. Especially the lack of different shops, restaurants and decorations makes the park management uninteresting, because I don't have the feeling I can create something unique. The complete lack of a tutorial is also not helping the game. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, sadly not. I like park management games, but in this game I don't have the feeling I have creative freedom. The game did a lot, but nothing very good. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Disney Princess on the Game Boy Advance. The name is localized based on the native language. This game was developed by Art and released 2003 in North America and Europe. In this game you play as different Disney princesses and solve the issues they have, like taking care of dwarfs that got turned to stone in a magical forest while defending yourself with your singing voice, or cleaning the house. Every princess has multiple chapters, but the gameplay is very similar for everyone. It is in every case a 2D side-scroller in which you run around, avoid enemies and find objects. If you collect everything, you unlock a secret dancing level in which every princess collects gems while dancing in a dress. The game, a Game Boy Advance game by the way, is saved by a password system. The game actually doesn't look bad. I like the sprites of the princesses and also the basic level designs look very cool. It mostly catches the mystical fairy tale look. The music is also great and the different princesses have their own themes. The same cannot be said about the sound effects, which are always repeating and not sounding very good. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The problem is the gameplay. It is not a very interesting game. You just go through the levels, avoiding the same few enemies the level has and collecting the objects. They are not even puzzles or anything, you just need to find them. That game design feels lazy. That the game is saved by a password and even such an unnecessary long one is insulting the player. It is a Game Boy Advance game. They keep up the insulting with their teased secret level. It is just collecting falling gemstones on the same background with all the princesses. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is boring and repetitive. The Disney princesses are deserving better than that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Rodland, also known in Japan as Yusei Monogatari Rodland on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Eurocom and released 1993 in Europe and Japan. In this port of an arcade game, you play as one of 2 sisters and try to rescue your mother. All the story there is one small screen. You can walk, climb ladders and attack the enemies with your wand, slamming them against the ground. When you kill an enemy, it drops a weapon that activates directly when you pick it up. If you collect all flowers or kill all enemies in a level, you go to the next one. The game looks okay. The sprites of the 2 playable characters and also the sprites of the enemies look good. The level backgrounds are easy but look fine. The foreground in these levels have nothing special. The game has some music that is running all the time. The music can get annoying, but is in general not bad. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very arcade-like, and it reminded me a bit of the original Donkey Kong. You always just have one screen as a level and the objective is quickly done, which lets you continue to the next screen. Sadly, there's not much gameplay. The levels all feel very samey, and the game was not much fun. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, I don't think it's worth to play. I looked at the arcade version of the game and I think it's a good port of that. It was just not a good arcade game, or it didn't age very well. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Medarod Kart Robottle on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Tosi and released in Japan in 2000. The game released in 2 versions, Kabuto and Kuwagata. Z versions are similar to the Pokemon games. The main game is the same, but there are some smaller differences in the card you start with. In the game you play the existing Medarod card game. You and the opponent each have 2 Medarods on the field with different parts like heads, arms and legs, and you have to destroy the parts of the other player's Medarod to reduce their life points. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version of the game. The game looks very Pokemon-like and the overworld between the building doesn't have a world to run through it, but it's just a menu. During the card play, the game stream is overwhelmingly full. There's so many information that all get shown at the same time. The card graphics look a little bit boring. The music is fine. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Reviewing the gameplay is not so easy for me, because I cannot speak Japanese and there's no English translation. I translated most of the dialogue, but it was still hard for me to understand. What I can say about the gameplay is that there's a lot of text. So much text. The gameplay is very slow. I didn't have the feeling that this card game is a good choice for the Game Boy Color. Since I didn't completely understand the game, I give it the benefit of the doubt. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. If you don't understand Japanese, then don't bother. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Cats on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Sapphire and released in North America and Europe in 1999. In this game you take care of a virtual cat. You can feed the cat, pet it and give different toys to your cat. When you adopt the cat, you can choose the color of the fur. The cat looks fine, a bit stupid but in a good way. The animations are also fine. The background images are exactly that, images. You cannot interact with anything in the background, and some of the backgrounds don't even try to emulate a room. There's also no background music during playing. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. There is no gameplay. You can give some items to the cat, but always just one item at a time, and you can also just see one cat on their screen. There's nothing to do, and it is not interesting enough to watch to justify that. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. With watching that review, you had the same experience as playing it. That gives the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Trax, also known as Totsugeki Ponkotsu Tank in Japan. Trax was developed by HAL Laboratory and released in Europe, the US and Japan in 1991. It is a virtual scrolling shooter in which you play a tank that can go, turn, and shoot. In the main mode, you fight through 5 levels with multiple bosses each. Enemies can drop upgrades and make your weapons stronger. Next to the main mode is another mode in which you can fight against up to 3 bots in different levels. For a 1991 Game Boy game, the game is looking great. The own sprites, the enemies and the surroundings look very good. I like that the levels have destructible objects. There's also some nice music. The game even has their own intro and end of game cutscene. Not many Game Boy games did that. Some areas look a little bit pale, but all in all the level design is very nice. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you would expect from a vertical scrolling shooter. You drive, mostly up, and shoot at everything you find. The upgraded weapons are nice, but mostly you don't feel so much stronger with them. The basic cannon is quite strong, especially when you're close, since the game lets you shoot again as soon as the old projectile is destroyed. The game has one big flaw. It slows down when a lot is going on. There's often a lot going on, so it slows down quite a lot, which is a shame. Besides that, the game works fine. The game is also quite short, with just 5 levels, and a big part of the last level is a boss gauntlet of the previous bosses. It gives the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a short 25-minute playthrough, but a fun one. The slowdown is a shame, but besides that, the game is really good. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Super Street Basketball 2 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by C-Lab and released in 1994 exclusively in Japan. This review sees a Super Game Boy version that added extra colors and better music. It is a game about street basketball in which you choose different players and play 3 vs 3 or 1 vs 1 basketball matches. Every player has different sprites and stats. There are no season or story mode, just an exhibition-like mode in which you choose your own team and the opponent's team to play against each other. When dunking, there's a special minigame in which you need to press A in the right moment to actually dunk. The game looks fine. The players all have their own sprites and look good. The coin toss animation and the dunking animation look very cool. Besides that, there is not much to see. There's just one court and just 6 sprites. The music is good but repeats quite quickly. Sometimes sprites overlap each other, which can look a bit buggy. That gives the presentation 3 out of 5 points. There's not much variety in this game. There's nothing to unlock, no story mode or even arcade mode. Just exhibition matches and that's it. That's sadly not much content. The gameplay itself feels like the available modes, a bit boring. There's not much to do. I'm happy about the dunking minigame, but besides that there's not much interesting going on. Especially the defense is boring. You can just dash a bit into the other one so that he loses the ball. Defending from that while having the ball doesn't exist. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There's no content and the gameplay itself is not interesting. If you want to play a basketball game on the Game Boy, I would suggest the Game Boy Color game NBA Showtime NBA on NBC that we reviewed as the first game in the series. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Zool, Ninja of the Nth Dimension on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Gremlin Graphics and is a port of the Amiga home computer game. In the game you play a gremlin ninja called Zool. It is a platformer game which you run, jump and climb through different levels. The game looks okay, the sprites are easily recognizable, but the backgrounds are often very pale. The graphics of the game are nothing special. The real star of the show is the song. The background music is great. I mean, it's just the one song, but that song is a banger. It feels like they built a jump and run game around that song. Mainly because of the song, I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. This game is hard and not always out of the right reasons. The game feels in the first moment fine. It's a fast-paced, Sonic-like platformer, but there are 2 big flaws. First is the attack. Sometimes I can attack and sometimes not. Maybe there are some mechanics that I don't know, but it felt unreliable and unresponsive. The second big flaw. Enemies respawn directly if you didn't see their spawn point for 1 second. That is so unbelievably annoying that it makes the game hard to play. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, unless you hate yourself and want to punish yourself for all the bad things you did in life. In that case, go ahead. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Beatmania GB2 Gotcha Mix on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Konami and released in 1999 exclusively in Japan. It is a rhythm game that reminded me a lot, well completely, of Guitar Hero. You hear a song, the notes come from up and you press the buttons at the right moment to play the song. I didn't know that this game principle is that old, but it makes sense. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added extra colors and better music. The game looks really good and the sounds are great. I like the 8-bit versions of songs. Still, the screen is clear and it is easily recognizable what to do. The screen shows on the right a few pictures, maybe from the original music videos. I'm not sure since I don't know any of the songs. I think you could have used more of the screen for the following notes and less for the pictures, but it still works quite good. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The game works like you would expect it to. You press the button at the right moment and that's it. The buttons always felt responsive, and there are even multiple different input modes that change the order of the buttons. The only thing missing is the rumble feature when you do something wrong, but the Game Boy Color doesn't have this feature. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, if you like a Guitar Hero-like rhythm game with Japanese rock and anime songs, then this is the game for you. It is very well made and fun. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points.
Missile Command on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys and released in Europe and North America in 1999. It is a port of the 1980 arcade game Missile Command. In the game you defend cities from missiles by shooting your own missiles. For that you have 2 missile silos that can shoot a certain amount of rockets. In every level you defend a specific city, and if there are still buildings after 2 levels you get a little animation in the next background. The graphics of the game are not good. It's a bit hard to judge since it is a port of an old Atari arcade game and it is looking like an old Atari arcade game. So in a way they did the presentation correct. But this game released 19 years later and for that it is not good enough. The backgrounds are lazy and the sprites for the houses don't even change for the different city. Everything looks bad and there's no background music and nothing. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine. You shoot a missile and the explosion of your missile stays on the screen quite long and destroys every enemy missile they touch. It is an okay gameplay, but also not enough for a console that had Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons. I know it is the port of an old game, and I guess that's the experience that the players at bought Missile Command wanted, but for me that is not great gameplay. There are also annoying things. Like after all the missiles are gone I need to wait until the animation of all the missiles is finally over so that I can continue playing. All the levels are basically the same. A lot of problems. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I guess it is a good port of a 1980 arcade game, but that doesn't make it worth playing. I give the game 1.5 out of 5 points.
Dragon Tales, Dragon Adventures on the Game Boy Color. When I heard the title, I was expecting an epic RPG, but then I saw the box art and knew I will get a different kind of game. Feeling like a fever dream. This game was developed by Handheld Games and released 2001 exclusively in North America. It is based on the educational children's series Dragon Tales. The game makes more sense now. In the game you can play different levels that all work similar. It is a 2D platformer. You go through the levels and collect a certain amount of a specific item that the fairies tell you. There are no enemies and you can only walk, jump and crawl. And slide. There are a lot of slides. The game looks fine. The backgrounds and sprites are very colorful and have a lot of different animations for the activities you can do. The music on the other hand got some problems. There is background music, which is already a plus, but the music sometimes sounds extremely weird whenever special effects happen at the same time. The background images get repeated a bit too often. There seems to be a lot of suns in Dragonland. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. I think the gameplay is very boring, but I'm also not the target audience for the game. The game clearly has children as the target audience, and I think for new young players the concept works. The fairies tell you what to do, everything works fine, and the objectives get repeated a lot. So, no confusion there. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Not if you're over 8, and I assume you are, so no. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. The Berenstain Bears and the Spooky Old Tree on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Program Ace and released 2005 exclusively in North America. The game is based on the book and TV series The Berenstain Bears. In the game you play the 3 bears, brother, sister and Fred. The game is a puzzle and in every level you got to get all the bears to the exit of the level. Every bear can do different things, like brother can push boxes, sister can jump further and Fred can use a rope to climb. The game has a weird look to it. The levels are in a very cartoony 2D style, but the player and enemy sprites are in a more realistic 3D look. I don't think it is looking very good. Especially the last boss, a bear climbing up, is looking like the bear has the wrong angle. It just runs up the air. Also no idea why he's wild and we are not. The game music is fine. It gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is a puzzle game with the most obvious puzzles existing. Whenever you need to use a certain bear, there's a sign with the face of the bear. So no need to think much. I know that I'm not the target audience for the game, but still. Even kids can do more than that. Between every character changing, you need to wait until the bear waved. That can take quite long and be annoying. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. At least no long passwords, but still, for Game Boy Advance games that is weak. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, nobody should play that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Real Pro Yaku, Central or Pacific, League Hen on the Game Boy Color. These 2 games were developed by Natsume and are the same game just with different playable teams. They were released exclusively in Japan in 1999. In this game you're the manager of a baseball team and you try to win the league. You can let the game automatically calculate the results of the games or play them yourself. If you want to do that, bring a lot of time because baseball takes forever. If you play the game yourself you can choose how to throw the ball or how to hit the ball with cards. It is not a reaction-based game, but more like a prediction-based game. The game looks cute, but also very easy. The presentation is nothing special, but it has some good baseball music, and when you do a home run there's a little animation, so that's something. Sadly, that's also the only thing. For such management games you don't need the best graphics, but a bit more would have been possible. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Rating the gameplay was a bit hard for me, out of 2 reasons. First, I don't understand Japanese, and second, I don't understand baseball. I know the basics of baseball, but not enough to make any tactical decisions, so I cannot really judge about how complex the game is or isn't. The manual baseball game was not my favorite, but that's all I can say about that. I didn't see any option to train the players or buy new ones. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Maybe if you're a great Japanese League baseball fan who can also read Japanese, but besides that I wouldn't recommend it. I give the game 2.5 out of 5 points.
Shiren the Wanderer GB2, Magic Castle of the Desert on the Game Boy Color. In Japan known as Fushigi no Dungeon, Furai no Shiren GB2, Sabaku no Majo. The game is a roguelike turn-based dungeon crawler. You go through a dungeon from one level to the other, and on the way you collect items, weapons and level up. If you die in the dungeon, you lose all equipment and levels, but keep some money to buy start equipment for the next dungeon run and so on. The enemies in the dungeon all act after you, so whenever you move, attack or use an item, that counts as a turn, and then the enemies are doing their turn, which is also moving or attacking you. The game is looking great. There's a very good looking intro cutscenes. I like how the enemies look. The weapons have different little sprites in your hand. The music is great. I have nothing bad to say about the presentation. I would say that is a perfect presentation on the Game Boy Color for that kind of game. I give the presentation 5 out of 5 points. The game is in Japanese and sadly there's no translation patch. There is a community, but they're busy doing translation patches for other Shiren the Wanderer games and systems. That's a shame because the game is very text heavy and there's quite a lot of dialogue. That also makes it hard for me to judge how complex the system can get. What I saw was extremely well made. The game is even using an autosave feature, and that as a Game Boy Color game, while some Game Boy Advance games that come out years later still use a password system. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only if you speak Japanese, and that's such a shame. Because this game got the highest rating yet and is incredibly well made, but sadly only released in Japan with no translation patch and being so text heavy. I still give the game overall 4.5 out of 5 points. Oriental Blue no Tengai. This game was developed by Hudson and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. In this review sees a fan-translated version of the game by ROM Hacking Ari. This game's on the first look a classical JRPG, but it does some interesting things. In the game you play as either a male or female character. That changes not just your sprite, but also the starting location. You get early in the game visions of a mysterious lady that you need to save. So let's go! But to where? Here's the first thing that makes the game special. After a little intro, the gates of the starting city open and you're left alone in the big world. You can go to many locations and find out what to do. The game doesn't use a classical quest system, but you've got a journal that records everything important that happened to you. Good luck. The presentation has two sides for me. On one side the game looks like a classical JRPG. I love the design of the towns and temples. The world has a Far Eastern look to it. Some cities look more Chinese, others more Japanese or Mongolian. The fights itself have that very simple look to them. Just the enemy sprites visible and not much fighting animations. It is a typical design for JRPG games, but I think it's a bit cheap. The enemy sprites look cool, but don't have any animations or anything like that. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what makes the game special. While there are the typical genre problems, like annoyingly high random encounter rates of enemies, the game gives you the freedom to explore it very early on, and that's cool. If you lose story-relevant fights, you don't have to retry, but you have to deal with the consequences, like a city getting overrun with monsters. There are also systems to upgrade your weapons with different orbs, and strategies to make the auto fight more to your liking. The game is very well made. I give the gameplay 4.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, but only for genre fans. You need to be a fan of RPGs and get a bit into the world building, running around and finding things to do. If you like that, then try the game out. I would call it a hidden gem on the Game Boy Advance. Thanks to ROM Hacking Ari for making that English translation, so that we can enjoy that great game too without being able to read Japanese. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Quest Fantasy Challenge, also known in Europe as Holy Magic Century on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Imagineer and released in Europe and North America in 1999. While I was expecting with this title an RPG, it is more like an arcade game. In every level you collect different treasures and gems. Whenever you collect everything or kill all the enemies, you go to the next level, with the goal of getting the highest score possible. The levels have some starting ways, but are mostly covered with some kind of dirt. You can go through that dirt and create new ways. The enemies will use that ways that you have created and try to hunt you down. In a physics-breaking way, the treasure chests, unlike everything else, can fall down if there is a way under them, and if they fall far enough they open, revealing special items that give points and weapon upgrades. The game has a very basic look to it and exactly one background music track. At least the enemies have different sprites. I would call the presentation functional. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay loop is very easy. You just run around and collect the things, trying to create little mazes to not getting hunted down by the enemies too fast. Sometimes you can lock the way with a chest or drop the chest on the enemies to destroy them. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Weirdly, yes. The game doesn't look like much and also the gameplay is nothing too special, but for like 20 minutes it's a fun game. More like a minigame than a full title, but not a bad one. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. X-Blades Inline Skater on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys, who we already know from Turrican on the Game Boy and Missile Command on the Game Boy Color, and released 2002 in North America and Europe. In this game, you race against other players on inline skates all over the world. The game is so unbelievably ugly. I would say it's the worst looking game that we reviewed yet. The maps look bad, the racers all look bad, the background look bad, the title screen looks hideous. The music is extremely annoying. I give the presentation 0 out of 5 points. On the same level as the presentation is the gameplay. The game is just an extremely bad version of Mario Kart. It is the same style of game, but in all aspects the worst version of that. From the 3 existing items, 2 are completely useless. Sometimes I just pause and I don't even know what hit me. There is no fun at all in that game. Because it is functioning, I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There's nothing redeeming about that game. Every aspect of it sucks. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Duel Masters Shadow of the Code on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Mystic Software and released in the PAL regions in 2004 and in North America in 2005. The game is based on the manga Duel Masters, and in the game you play the existing card game Duel Masters. The English version of the trading card game was produced by Wizards of the Coast, and the game is quite similar to Magic the Gathering. Back to the video game. This game is a sequel to 2 other Duel Master games on the Game Boy Advance, and the story takes place after them. Since Lucky Wheel decided that I played the third game first, it was hard to get into the story. Everyone loved me and wanted my autographs. That never happens. I liked the basic idea of the presentation, with the sprites of the monsters on the field, but I think the game is trying a bit too much. The most monster pictures and sprites look like a pixelated mess, and it was hard for me to recognize the abilities without going in the details. I also don't really like the presentation of the characters and dialogues. It might be close to the manga or anime, but I think it doesn't really look good. The same with the overworld map, which is just like a menu. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. I like Magic the Gathering, and having a different, slightly easier version of it for a maybe younger audience is cool. The problem I see with this game is mostly the presentation. Since it was hard for me to recognize what the cards can do, in the beginning you also get a lot of cards, which makes sense if you have played the first 2 games. But if you join like me in the third game and you get so many cards that you need to look in detail to understand the abilities, it gets annoying very fast. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. If you know the card game and cards already, it might be a good fit, but if not, it is not much fun looking through everything to try to understand it. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Tailgater, also known in Japan as Shippo-de-Ban on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Natsume and released in 1999 in Europe and the US and in 1992 in Japan. The box art of the 2 games is a bit different per region. Europe and US went with the edgy, action, realistic, and Japan with the cute. The game is a puzzle or jump and run game and is very similar to older card game. In Tailgater you play an alligator that fights with its tail. In every level you need to open all the chests to find the key to go to the next room. In the first areas you can choose the order of the levels freely, and sometimes there is a boss fight. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks quite nice. I like the sprites of the player characters and of the enemies. The level designs are nothing special, especially in the underwater parts. It can be hard to see if you are underwater right now or not. The bosses look fine. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is actually fun. In the beginning I thought the game might be too easy, but the later levels can get quite tricky. The jump is very floaty, but the game is using that nicely. I also liked the boss fights, just the last one was a bit easy. The respawning of the enemies in the levels can be annoying, but at least the enemies cannot hurt you directly. There's a fair time until they actually spawn. The game is using its mechanics very well. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a fun playthrough that takes around 90 minutes with an increase in difficulty per area. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Honkaku Taisen Shogi Ayumu on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Culture Brain and released exclusively in Japan in 2000. The game is, like the name already told us, a game about shogi. Shogi is a board game and also known as Japanese chess. My problem for this review? I don't know how to play shogi, so yeah, I still review it. The presentation of the game is simple. There's just one background track and the game board is looking simple too. There's nothing special, and if you do illegal moves there's no indication why it was illegal. Maybe not important for experienced players, but for me that would have been useful. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game has 2 modes. First a match against the computer, and second are 100 challenges with different starting situations. There's no story or tutorial mode. The game is better safe and multiple save slots. You can also redo your last turn. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just for shogi fans and people that know how to play it. There's no tutorial or anything like that, so if you don't know how to play, you won't learn it here. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Shippu Iron League on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Sun-L and released 1994 exclusively in Japan. It is a platformer based on the anime Shippu Iron Leaguer. In the game you play a team of Iron Leaguers that are robots that are all good in a certain sport. In the story mode you start with a baseball and karate Liga, and after every area you fight against a different Liga that will join your team afterwards. Every Liga got their own HP bar, attack and sometimes a unique way of movement. You can freely switch between the Ligas by pressing start or select. There's also survival high score mode, where you start with all the Ligas unlocked already, and you do one stage of each area and try to get a good time. There's a last mode in which you play minigames of 3 different Ligas that shows them during their sport. The game is looking really nice. I like the sprites of the players and enemies, and also the backgrounds look good. The main menu theme is great, and during the gameplay you also have always background music. There are even little cutscenes with dialogues and different background music. They put a lot of effort into the presentation. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The game is fun to play, especially because you can switch between the characters. They all are at least a bit different. The level designs are nothing special, but work good. That you have 3 modes in such a game is great variety. The only problem I saw was that your Ligas with special movement can die, and then you can be stuck because you need that movement. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a great platform and really fun. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Double Yakuman 2 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by ImageSoft and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. The game is a mahjong game. Not a mahjong solitaire game, but a real mahjong game. The good thing for me is that I know how to play mahjong, so I actually knew what to do in that game. The bad thing for me is that I know Chinese mahjong, and at least in China there are a lot of different rule variations depending on the region. And I'm not sure if it is in Japan more clear, but there were no rules or anything like that for the specifics, so you just got to know. The presentation is good. I like that it shows a black background, which makes the game easier to look at. The stones are recognizable and the information is visible. I like that the enemies are not just named, but have little faces, so you can play against some grandpa or a penguin. The game has 3 background tracks and you can choose which one to use. The presentation is doing nothing special, but a solid job. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is exactly how you imagine mahjong, but it's great. Sadly there's no rule clarifications, which I would have liked, and there's no story mode or anything like that. Since the gameplay does its job, but not more, I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you're a fan of mahjong and know how to play. The game is not explaining anything, but if you're a fan, I think you will have fun with it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points.
Finish him! Scorpion wins. Fatality.
Mortal Kombat Deadly Lines on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Midway and released 2002 in North America and Europe. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have formed a deadly alliance and it is your job to stop them. It is a typical Mortal Kombat fighting game. There are 12 playable characters, some of them you need to unlock first, and 2 game modes, Arcade and Survival. In every fight, and sometimes in minigames, you earn coins, and with that you can unlock different things in the crypt, not knowing before what you will unlock. The game has a quite realistic look. I'm not too sure what to think of it. On one hand it looks not too bad on the GBA, and on the other hand it is looking a bit like a pixelated mess. I'm not sure. The background looked fine and rotate when you move. The music is okay, but Mortal Kombat has some great themes and sadly this game doesn't really use them. The narrator sounds cool. I guess the presentation is 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is really nice. The special moves are easy to do, mostly quarter cycles and a button, and even the fatalities are not difficult. I really like the controls. Just having 2 face buttons makes it a bit difficult for the Game Boy Advance, but they did the controls well, and as soon as I figured out how to do a special move, I could repeat it with no issues. The variety is fine for a fighting game. You have your arcade modes with different endings and the survival mode with a lot of unlockables. The game really feels like a Mortal Kombat game. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a good Mortal Kombat game on a handheld. Try it out, it's fun. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Pitan on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Interstate and released 1991 exclusively in Japan. In Pitan you are a mother chicken that tries to save her little chickens from an evil dog. You do that by laying eggs and shooting your children up with a seesaw. I guess just the hatched children are worth saving and not the eggs. The game is a very arcade-like puzzler. Every level has a different setup and you try to save the chickens. All 5 levels is a little bonus stage where you can get a chicken back. The game looks okay, nothing too special. The chicken sprites look fine, the enemy looks fine, and there's a little background music that changes whenever the enemy is trying to eat the chicken. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is a minigame. You just lay the eggs and shoot the chickens up. There's not much to do and it's not so interesting. It is fun for a little, very little while. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a fine execution of the game idea, but not very interesting. You won't miss anything with never playing that game. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Panel no Ninja Kesamaru on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Epoch and Sas Sakata and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. In this puzzler game you play a ninja that in every level needs to find the key and the door to finish it. To do that you can switch the floor plates around and move blocks. Sometimes you find some upgrades that let you throw ninja stars or other weapons to defend yourself against the enemies. The game looks fine but unspectacular. The presentation is really basic. There is background music and sound effects and they are okay. The level design is simple. There are no decorations or anything like that. It is very functional. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The basic idea of the game is fine. There are 3 stages and in every stage are multiple levels that you can do in any order you want. The levels are really fast but can get tricky. There is not much more to say. What you see in this review is what you get. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. The formula is getting old quickly and there's not much fun in this game. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Majoko Cream-chan no Goku Series 2 Kizike Angel on the Game Boy Advance. In this game, with the extremely long title, you play as a witch Cream-chan that needs to help someone by collecting the 7 most beautiful smiles. Yep, that is the story. You play a witch called Cream-chan that runs around to help people in the town to collect smiles. That game is a long fetch quest. You just run around aimlessly and talk to everybody. After a while you will get some objects and you can do some minigames to make some other objects to give that to someone else. That you repeat all the time. The game actually looks fine, but there's not much to see. I like the look of Cream-chan and of the city, but the dialogues are all quite boring to look at and the minigames that I saw also didn't look very good. The music always starts new whenever you enter a building or a new screen. That happens often and is quite annoying. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Well, there's not much gameplay. Run around through the same city all the time, minigame, run around. That is it. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. If you have anything going on in your life, whatever it is, do that instead. If you have nothing going on, just do nothing. That is still better than playing this game. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Sylvanian Melody, Mori no Nakama to Odori Mashi on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Natsume and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. In this review, see the Super Game Boy version with better music. The game is based on the Sylvanian Family series, which seems to be a series of plushed animals and toys. This game is a rhythm game. There's one minigame, and that is pushing 3 buttons in the right moment. The game looks very cute. I like the bright colors, and the characters all have cute look to them. In the dialogues are little animations, and everything looks very polished. While it's always the same minigame, they have different characters and objects as the nodes. The presentation is fine. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is boring. That there's just one kind of rhythm minigame is disappointing. Like this, it's just a worse version of Beatmania GB2. The buttons often felt unresponsive and it was hard to know the exact timing to press. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Play Beatmania GB2 if you're looking for a rhythm game on the Game Boy Color. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Flushed Away on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ultra and released 2006 in the PAL regions and North America. The game uses different localized versions of the game title and is based on the DreamWorks movie Flushed Away. I've never seen the movie, so I'm missing the nostalgia here. The game is a beat-em-up game. You run as different rats through the levels and you beat up insects and other rats to get to the end of the level. From time to time comes a boss fight or a stage with a bit different mechanics. The game uses a password system to save. The game looks good. The sprites are well made, the backgrounds are nice, and there's good background music. The bosses have unique attacks and look funny too. There's a little cutscene before each stage. The game reminds me a bit of old arcade beat-em-up games. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The problem is the gameplay. The game is heavily relying on fighting as the main thing to do, but sadly the fighting system is not really interesting and never feels good. So the game is just not fun. It is a big problem if you're making a beat-em-up game, but the fighting doesn't feel good. Additionally, the game uses a password system on the Game Boy Advance. That's lazy. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game looks good and has fine music, but sadly it is just not fun, so I don't know why anyone should play it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Soccer Kid on the Game Boy Advance. This game was originally made for Amiga and released in 1993. I first thought the game is a FIFA-like game, but no. The box art already tells us it is a fast-paced platform adventure. The Game Boy Advance port that you see in this review was developed by Chrysalis Software and released 2006. Space Pirates took the World Cup trophy and immediately get hit by an asteroid after that. The fragments of the trophy are all over the world and it's your job to get them. For that you run through 5 levels that are in different countries like London, Russia and Japan. And for whatever reason, everyone and everything wants to kill you. You can hit them back with your football. The problem is if you shoot your ball away or jump, then you're without your ball and you need to get it back since it's your only weapon. The game looks fine. I think the sprites look good and the backgrounds are fine too. The foregrounds have always a lot of local objects depending on the region the level plays in. The music is fine too. One big problem with the presentation that is also affecting the gameplay is that you don't see much of the screen. Often enemies get in your view and it's already too late to dodge them. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is quite difficult. I needed long to get past the first stage. That you always have to take your ball with you is the point of the game, but it's also a bit annoying. I didn't have that much fun with the game. I think if you play the game more, it can feel quite good to have control over the ball, but I never really got to that point. Additionally, the game gets saved by a password system, which I don't like for Game Boy Advance games. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a well-made game and a nice concept, but I personally got annoyed by always taking the ball with me and by the hard difficulty. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Heavyweight Championship Boxing on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Tosi and released 1990 in Japan and North America. In Japan the game is just called Boxing. In Heavyweight Championship Boxing, you box. In the beginning you can choose your fighter and your knockout punch, and then you play in an arcade mode fashion against the other opponents. Between every fight you can upgrade the stat of your choosing. The game changes between a top view mode of the ring and a POV fight scene. The game looks for an early Game Boy game quite good, but especially the backgrounds and between the fight scenes are very easy. The POV scene looks fine and there's some background music. Because it is an early Game Boy game, I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is just like the presentation. Fine, but simple. You fight against different opponents, but the game never really feels different. I like that I put that upgrade system in and multiple boxes to choose from. That is more than the minimum. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a fine game, but also nothing special that would make the game worth playing. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Hello, Idol debut Kids Idol Is OK game on the Game Boy Advance. First of all, I want to explain again that I review every game and that the lucky wheel decides what game I review. So with that being said, in this game you play a kid that is trying to be an idol. For that you go to idol school to learn dancing and makeup and how to be an idol. Yep. The game is mostly based on minigames and the different subjects that you learn. You unlock new outfits and so on. The game looks fine, but has a rather easy style. The faces look very cartoony and the minigames look not very special. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is boring. You wake up, you go to the classes and you do the minigame that after a few minutes already repeats himself. Maybe the game has more to offer later, but I'm not willing to play more of that. It gives the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think I would find it highly disturbing if anyone over the age of 14 plays that game longer than 30 minutes. So don't do that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Aguri Suzuki F1 Super Driving on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Pixel and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. It was released on the Super Nintendo and on the Game Boy. The game is a Formula 1 racing game. You drive from a behind-the-car perspective through different tracks. There are time races and races against other racers. After every race you can visit different shops to buy new parts and change the setup and reset the stats of your car. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks quite nice. The race itself looks very easy, but the menus have little animations for every action, like a little pit stop to change the setup of your car. That is very charming. Besides that, there is not much to see. There's also no background music during the racing. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine, but also not very special. You can see the whole map to see the curves coming, that is very handy. Besides that, there's not much interesting. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a worse version of V-Rally Championship Edition, which makes sense since V-Rally came out 5 years later, but now I would recommend playing V-Rally. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Kirby Star Stacker on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by HAL Laboratory and released in Europe, North America and Japan in 1997. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version of the game that added colors and better music. This Kirby game is a Tetris-like puzzler. You need to collect stars, and you do that if the stars are between the two same friends of Kirby. There are some different modes, like challenges and a survival mode, where you can play until you're defeated to get the high score. The game looks very good. The Kirby games are all well made and this one is too. Everything is very cute. There's nice background music and the gameplay looks nice. At the same time the presentation is quite easy. Suitable for that kind of game, but still nothing too impressive. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is really fun. The challenges in the mode are great and the endless mode is also very good. It is very Tetris-like, but has its own mechanics and something unique. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a very good game. I like the gameplay and such puzzles age very well. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Tom and Jerry 2 Frantic Antics, also known as Tom and Jerry 2 the movie in Europe and Tom and Jerry Part 2 in Japan. So this game was developed by Beam Software and released in North America and Europe in 1993 and in Japan in 1994. It is a jump and run game featuring Tom and Jerry as playable characters. It is based on Tom and Jerry the movie from 1992. In the game you play through multiple levels, always playing Tom or Jerry. The levels are typical jump and run levels or some variety. They are the run from left to right, find a specific thing, and scrolling background levels. Tom and Jerry both play the same and can only jump and do a rolling attack. The game looks fine, but nothing more. The sprites are okay and the backgrounds look quite nice. I also like the background music. Between the levels is sadly just a picture, and that is always the same, and the title of the level with the objective. While the game follows the plot of the movie, there's not much to explain the plot. Just the name and the description of the level and one line of dialogue at the end of each level. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game plays fine. The running and jumping feels good and the levels have the right length to stay fine. But at the same time there's also nothing special about the gameplay. It is a standard jump and run game. Additionally, the attack, the only one you have, is done by running and pressing during running, down, forward and B. That is not working very reliable and is a huge problem. The B button is not used in a different way, so why not just make the roll attack by pressing B? I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not a bad game, but also offers nothing special that would make me play the game again. I give the game 3 out of 5 points. Hype, the time quest on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Planet Interactive and released 2000 exclusively in Europe. It is a port of the computer game with the same title. You are the knight Hype that gets sent back in time and has to fight through 4 different eras to get back to his time and save everyone from the evil Dark Knight. In the game you play a Playmobil man in a Playmobil world. I think in the computer version the story makes sense. Here not really. Besides a bad looking start and end cutscene, there's not much story. The 4 different times also just have different hub worlds that look nearly identical besides a different color scheme. In every era you play 3 levels in any order you want. You have a dragon riding level and then a boss fight. After that you go to the next era and so on. The game looks really good. I like the colors and the music is great too. There's always background music and the levels look really nice. The player and NPC sprites look a bit weird. They tried to recreate the look of a Playmobil figure, but kind of failed. The start and end of game cutscenes are hideous. They just tried to take random pictures from the computer version, but because of the lower resolution it looks like garbage. Still, the game in total is beautiful and I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is a typical jump and run. The problem is that the levels, special abilities and everything gameplay-wise is extremely standard. There's nothing that stands out. The jump is floaty and all special abilities, arrows and different spells, do the same. They one-shot enemies. So why are there 3 different spells? No idea. The bosses also just have 1 or 2 attacks that they repeat until they die. The only thing that changes is that they do the same attack a bit faster whenever the HP is low. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a not very creative but solid jump and run game that looks nice and is a fine 90-minute playthrough. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Ultima, Runes of Virtue on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Origin System and released 1991 in Japan and 1992 in North America. In Japan the game is just called Ultima. The game is part of the famous Ultima video game series. It is a RPG dungeon crawler. You choose 1 of 4 characters, all with slightly different abilities, and then you can go directly nearly everywhere and try to find the runes. The game looks easy and boring. I didn't really like the presentation. The sound is fine, but the graphics are, even for the Game Boy, very basic. There are no real backgrounds and the objects in the dungeons look easy and get repeated all the time. The enemy sprites are also nothing special. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay was for me the same. Everything felt very basic. You can have 1 attack on each button based on the equipped weapon and that's it. It can be hard to hit the enemies, especially when they move around fast. There's no level system based on experience, so that killing enemies never feels satisfying. At least the game is saved by battery save. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I know that Ultima is a big series with many fans, so it hurts me to say, but no. For me, without nostalgia to that game, I don't see anything special that would make it worth playing. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Rainbow Islands on the Game Boy Color. This is a port of a 1987 arcade game. The game released exclusively in Europe in 2001 and was developed by Taito. In the game you play a little boy that can shoot rainbows, climb on top of them, and with that get higher and higher in the level. From the floor is coming water, so you need to hurry to get to the top. On the way are enemies that you can defeat with your rainbows. There are 2 modes, story mode, with not much story, and a challenge mode. The game looks not very good. It looks close to the original arcade game, but that didn't look so good either, so I give it points for being close to the original, but not many. There's background music, but not many different tracks, and the sound effects get annoying quickly too. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very boring. You make rainbows, you climb on top of them, you jump higher. Sometimes you make multiple rainbows in a row, but that's it. I don't know. Most of that arcade ports that released for the Game Boy Color didn't impress me. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not very fun. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Onigashima Punchik 10 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Marionette and released exclusively in Japan in 1991. I am not sure if I understood the game, maybe not, but I review based on what I understood. You run around a casino, you can play at different tables, the always same minigame. You throw balls into a machine and depending where they land you get points. That's it. The overworld looks more or less same in every room. The machines all look the same until you use them. Then you get a few details and you can play on them. The tables look okay, but also not very special, and the casino looks extremely bad and confusing. There's some background music. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is throwing a ball in at different tables and hope to get more points. I don't really get it, but that's all I saw, so yeah. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Playing the game is a bit like watching a screensaver. Just somehow worse. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Batman Vengeance on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and released 2001 and is based on the new Batman Adventure series. In the game you play Batman, Robin and Batgirl to defeat the Joker, Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. The game is a beat-em-up platformer. You have different gadgets like a batarang and a grappling hook. There are also levels where you drive the Batmobile or fly with the Batplane, I guess. The game is saved by a password system. In the first second with the 3D view, I thought this game will look great, but not really. The levels look okay at best and the assets in the level repeat often. The sprites look a bit weird too and there's no real pow behind your punches. They just happen, not even sure if you hit anything or not. The music is nothing special too. The cutscenes are just still images with 3D rendered characters. I guess from the PlayStation 2 version of the game. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is bad. The fighting system is boring, the bosses are uncreative and the level design sucks too. So many bottomless pits where you just die. Cool gadgets like the grappling hook can just be used in specific spots and are not very fun. And the different level types that exist, like driving some vehicles, are sadly also not fun. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. That already gives a first impression of what you will get. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. While being Batman sounds great, here it is not. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Disney's Treasure Planet on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Bizarre Creations and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. The game uses a localized title based on the native language of the country. It is based on Disney's Treasure Planet and is an action-adventure game in an isometric view. You go through different areas. In every area you need to collect a certain number of items that are at the end of the levels. Levels are a bit dungeon-like, where you need to find keys and solve puzzles to progress further. If you have done all the levels and collected all the things, you can go to the next area and start collecting there. From time to time you see a scene from the movie, or you have a minigame where you drive the solar surfer. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks fine. The level look nice, but the sprites of the human-like NPC and of the players can look a bit pixelated. They tried to recreate the look of the movie, but I'm not sure the Game Boy Advance was capable of that. At least not in the way they did it. The movie scenes look okay, but not more. The background music of the game is fine. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay, on the other hand, has some issues. It is always the same, 3 levels and then the next area. They tried a bit of a Zelda style, but didn't catch the good dungeon design that these games have, and Treasure Planet doesn't have an overworld, so it's just a dungeon-like levels. The levels are way too long and start getting annoying quickly. Additionally, you have the password system, the beacon of laziness. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is not fun, it is tedious. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Mahu Kishi Rayner's Second, the missing color on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Pandora Box and released 1995 exclusively in Japan. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added more colors and better music. The game got a fan translation that I used, released by Piers Hillock. This game is the second in the series. It is a classic RPG. A thief stole all the colors and because of that the world is starting to crumble. It is the task of you, a group of 3 magical knights, to get the colors back. You do that in a typical RPG fashion. Run around, kill enemies, level up and destroy the bosses. The game is saved by a battery save. The game is looking very great. It has good background music. The overworld looks not too special but fine. The fights, while having the standard look, provide a charm through the fighting animations. I like that the story uses the limitations of the Game Boy with the missing color storyline. I think for a Game Boy RPG that is nearly the best you can do. I don't think the voice lines were the best idea, but still. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay has sadly some issues. First of all, the gameplay is good. It is a standard RPG gameplay. Sadly, it comes with the standard RPG issues. The encounter rate is way too high. All of you stab something new is attacking you. There's no big world map like other RPGs have, and the game feels more like a dungeon crawler, where you go from one dungeon to the next. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just for genre fans. The game looks good and is well made, but the high encounter rate can really get annoying quickly. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Turok Evolution on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by RFX Interactive and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. You got transferred to the Lost Lands and they shoot everything that moves, mainly enemy soldiers and dinosaurs. You can play one out of 2 characters that have different start weapons, and then you run through the level and shoot. The game is a beat 'em up, or in that case more of a shoot 'em up. You run from left to right and try to reach the exit without dying. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks good, the sprites are really nice and the levels look cool. I like the colors they used. The cutscenes on the other hand are just images and not even very good ones. The game has some good background music. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is quite basic, running and shooting. From time to time the game changes to boss fights, which are changing the game to a gallery shooter. It feels good but does not reach the heights of a Contra. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. Why? I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a fine shoot 'em up. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points.
Today we review Pokemon Silver, Gold and Crystal on the Game Boy Color. These games were developed by Game Freak and released between 1999 and 2001 everywhere. The 3 different versions are mostly the same but have variations in the Pokemon you can find and catch in the game. In this review you see Pokemon Crystal. I think everyone that finds this channel knows Pokemon. You run around, catch Pokemon, train them, defeat the gym leaders and the top 4. Gold, Silver and Crystal are the second generation of Pokemon games. While the main part of the game stayed the same, a lot of new things got included. Colors, new Pokemon, a day-night cycle, Pokemon X, and most importantly for me, a better organization system for the items. That is a game changer compared to the first Pokemon generation. The game looks very good. The Pokemon sprites look great and have little animations at the start of a fight. The overworld looks really nice too. It is colorful and everything is easy recognizable. While the graphics of the game are solid, the music is really outstanding. There are a lot of good tracks that are very memorable. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The game is addicting and has a perfect grind and reward ratio. That the franchise went to the heights it is today is mainly because the first generation's games were incredible. I give the gameplay 5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, the game still holds up. For me personally it holds up way better than the first generation because of comfort functions like the better item organization and because I like the colorful world. There are tons of randomizers and challenges you can play, so the replayability is as high as it can be. I give the game overall 5 out of 5 points. Today we review Maru's Mission, or Oira Jajamaru Seikei Daiboken, on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Tosi and released in 1990 in Japan and 1991 in North America. I'm not sure if anyone likes the style of the cover of the American version, but for me it looks like they really tried hard to not sell any copies of the game. It is an action jump and run. You run with ninjas through the levels, defeat a mini-boss and a main boss in each level and try to get back your girlfriend. She got kidnapped for some reason, I'm not really clear why. You can run, jump and shoot shuriken. The enemies sometimes drop power-ups that can do all kind of weird things. Half of the time I had no idea what's going on. The levels are quite short. For an early Game Boy game the game looks fine, and it has background music and sound effects, which sounds like nothing special, but not every game of that time has. I think the presentation is fine. I like the backgrounds and the character designs. The main character looks very cute. Since it is such an early Game Boy game, I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay is okay. The attacks feel fine, but the jump feels really floaty. That is also because you can jump extremely high. I'm not a big fan of that jump. Sometimes it feels like the game has a slowdown whenever there are multiple enemies on the screen. The levels and bosses are nothing special gameplay wise too. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not bad, but also not so good. The levels are short, the boss is boring, and there's nothing that stands out that would make it worth playing today. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Donkey Kong Country 2, or in Japan known as Super Donkey Kong 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Rare and released 2004. There is a port of the SNES version of the game that released in 1995. It is an action jump and run game in which you play Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie Kong in an attempt to save Donkey Kong, who got captured by King K. Rool. Not only do you play Diddy and Dixie Kong, which play a little bit different from each other, but also multiple enemies that you can ride on. Additionally, the game has some minigames. The graphic style of Donkey Kong Country is a very unique one. It has pre-rendered 3D images for the characters and backgrounds. I always need a moment to get used to that style, but after a little moment it looks very good. Outstanding is also the music. Donkey Kong Country has some great music tracks. The whole game is in a pirate theme and uses all cliches of the genre really well, while taking itself never serious, in a good way. I'm a big fan of the presentation and give it 5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fantastic too. The developers really knew what they were doing when they developed this game. The jumping, enemies and level designs all feel satisfying. Especially Dixie Kong with a gliding ability is a lot of fun. The levels also have some good variety and a perfect length to not get annoying. While they are difficult at times, it rarely feels unfair. That gives the gameplay 5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a really good handheld port of the SNES version and feels just great. It is an amazing game and I give it overall 5 out of 5 points. Today we review Spirit and Spells, also known as Castleween in the PAL regions and Maho no Pumpkin in Japan, on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Magic Pockets and released 2003. It is Halloween and you get separated from your group and all the demons and skeletons try to kill you. It is an action jump and run in which you play a demon or a witch and at certain points you can switch between them. You can mainly run, jump and attack. The jumping and attacks are a bit different between the characters. The demon has a double jump while the witch can float. The game is saved by a password system. The presentation of the game is okay. The enemy and level designs are fine and the characters look okay too. The music is also average. Sadly, nothing is very outstandingly good and it is extremely average. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is not average. It is worse. The game doesn't feel good to play. The jumps are a bit weird, especially during platforms. You port a little bit onto them, even if it looks like you wouldn't make it. It is hard to describe. The attack feels like it has no impact and the fun is not there. Additionally, it is a Game Boy Advance game with a password system. That is a very good indicator of what you will get. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not very good. Or fun, so no. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Battleship, or in Japan known as Kaisen Game Navy Blue on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Pack and Video and released 1989 in Japan and 3 years later, 1992, in North America and the PAL regions. The game is, like the title suggests, a game about the board game Battleship. You play in different stages, always, well, battleships. But they add some special abilities like multi-shot or scanners. The presentation is fine. The game boards are easy recognizable and there are little animations for shooting the rockets and hitting or missing ships. There's also at least one music track. There's not much more to say. It looks like I would imagine a Battleship game on the Game Boy. I give the game 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is battleships. It is not more and not less than that. The special abilities make the game a bit more fast, but besides that all state classical battleship. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? I guess so. If you want to, for whatever reason, play Battleship on the original Game Boy, then this is as good as it gets. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Night Crest on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Lena and released 1991 in Japan and 1992 in North America. The monsters of the world got more aggressive and attack now even in broad daylight. It needs a knight to go on an epic quest to bring balance back and so your adventure begins. The story of the game is extremely simple and is told in a few lines. This game is a grind-heavy, simple RPG in which you fight your way through the world. The game looks and sounds quite good. The enemy designs are cool and whenever you fight you go in that 2D perspective. Different attacks and spells have different animations and even the enemies have a variety of attacks. We are talking about the original Game Boy in 1991, so the expectations shouldn't be too high, but I found the presentation of the game quite good. The music is also solid. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is kind of as simple as you can make an RPG. You can choose between 4 different attacks that all have slightly different animations and all the enemies are weak against a certain attack. There are also healing and magic items. You run around and grind heavily to get better level and equipment like higher level swords and then you defeat bosses. It is as simple as that. While it is nothing crazy innovative, it is simple and fun. The developers even put it in the option to make the fights faster and the money income a bit higher because they knew how grind heavy the game is. I appreciate that. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? just if you're a fan of grinding. The game has not much else, but every level feels like you get stronger and you can go further, so it is motivating. If you're a fan of a light-hearted grind RPG, you should go for it. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review International Super Soccer, or in Japan known as World Soccer GB on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Konami and released 1998 everywhere. The game is part of the International Super Soccer series, the Konami football game series before Pro Evolution Soccer. The game focuses on the national teams and has many different European and Asian teams. The game uses different names and the replay names because of missing licenses. You can play single matches, penalty shootouts, or a World Cup with previous qualification rounds. The game is a late Game Boy game and it looks quite impressive. The sprites for the players are not much varied, all players kinda look the same, but they are looking very good. The field is big and there are actually 11 players on the field. Sadly, there's no background music during the matches, and stuff like throw-ins have a whole screen to show what's happening. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Reviewing the gameplay is not so easy. On one hand, I'm very impressed by the game. They took a game that was way too big for a Game Boy, but still managed to port it in a good playable version. It is a big and quite complex game. You can choose different formation and strategies. The only problem is, they kinda took the fun out of it. The game, while impressive, is simply not much fun to play. It is too serious and realistic for the Game Boy. It feels slow, on rails and predictive. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend the game? No. I like football games and this one is an impressive one for the original Game Boy, but sadly not a fun one. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Legendary Starfy, or in Japan known as Densetsu no Starfy on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Tosi and released 2002 in Japan. It is the first of a series of Starfy games. It is an action platformer, puzzler kind of game in which you play Starfy, a little yellow starfish. The game plays in an underwater setting and you go around in the levels and help some animals of the sea while you kill others. Sometimes you fight a boss and it goes to the next level. The levels are quite big, with multiple doors to different areas, and can be sometimes a bit confusing to navigate. The game looks great. It has nice music and good sound effects, it is very colorful and just cute. The whole game felt a bit like Kirby to me, but in the best way possible. The animations of Starfy are beautiful and the style of the game is great. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay of the game is really good too. You swim, run and glide through the levels, find different NPCs and help them to advance in the levels. Like I said before, sometimes the levels are a bit confusing and there are multiple ways to go. The controls really feel good. In total, the game feels a bit too easy, besides finding the correct way. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a fun playthrough and worth the time. There's also an English patch for the game. There are 2 more Starfy games on the Game Boy Advance, and I'm curious and excited to review them too. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Wordtris on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Real Time Associates and released exclusively in North America in 1992. Wordtris is exactly what you think it is. A Tetris game where you make words instead of lines to make them disappear. It is a child of Scrabble and Tetris. There's not much else to say. The game looks okay and has some fine music. They didn't take any risk with the presentation. It looks exactly like you would imagine Tetris with Scrabble blocks. Sadly, they didn't try to give it anything unique or interesting from a presentation point. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Gameplay-wise, it is Tetris with letters. Scrabble Tetris. Scriptris. Wordtris. It is not a bad idea, but also very uncreative. I don't know, it didn't impress me very much and wasn't that fun to play. But they also didn't do anything wrong. The developers really kept it on the safe side with this one. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It's just not as fun and addicting as Tetris. I think it is a downgrade, but for people that really like Scrabble it might be an upgrade. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Mohun 3 Skiptoon, also known as Mohan 3 The Chicken Chase on the Game Boy Color. Before I tell anything about the game, I will explain a bit about the Mohun franchise. The first Mohun game was made in 1998 as an advertisement game, and you could play it in bars on laptops, and was not meant to be released as a game. Still, a lot of people shared it through emails and websites. In Germany the game was a giant phenomenon and one of the most viral advertisement campaigns of all times. The game got hyped and everyone played it. Especially in German offices, the game got played during working time and lost the country over 100 billion mark. Software was written to block the game from office computers, and people claimed that shooting chicken was too violent. Later the hype slowed down and the game disappeared, but still everyone in Germany knows Mohun. Back to the game. This game was developed by Similis and released 2002 exclusively in Europe. It is a port of the Mohun 3 PC game and a gallery shooter. Additionally, there are some minigames, like a Tetris clone. The game looks bad on the Game Boy Color. They really just ported the PC version in a bad resolution. The game is nearly not recognizable, and that is, especially for such a shooter game, a big problem. The music is okay, and the main theme track is full of energy. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. I don't think gallery shooters that normally use a mouse are the best fit for handhelds, and at least in this case I am correct. While the cursor is good controllable, it still doesn't feel so good to play. The minigames are extremely pointless, and the main game just has one level, which is also the case in the original PC version by the way, and that's just lazy. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a lazy cash grab that tried to make money out of the franchise while there was still a hype. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Sega Arcade Gallery on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sega and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. Yet it's a collection of 4 older Sega arcade games. Afterburner, a rail shooter in airplanes, Space Harrier, a third-person rail shooter, Outrun, a driving game, and Super Hang-On, another driving game, but on motorcycles. The games all look okay but a bit pixelated. They ported the old games on the Game Boy Advance, but not in an impressive way. The music is great in all the games, but the visuals are not so good. It looks like they just changed the resolutions of the arcade versions, and I have the feeling the games could have looked better on the GBA if the style got adjusted a bit more for the system. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is... I think the gameplay is like intended. The games feel like arcade games from the late 80s or early 90s. I don't know how to judge that. I think for an arcade collection, that is how the gameplay should feel like. But on the other hand, these games are quite simple games, and for the GBA that is a bit low. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think these games are great for people with the nostalgia of the old arcade games. Without that nostalgia, the games feel presentation and gameplay wise not very special for the Game Boy Advance. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Oja Rumaru, Tsukiyo ga Iki no Takara Mono on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Success and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is a game based on the manga Oja Rumaru, and it's a Mario Kart-like board game, but with a strong focus on cutscenes with various funny characters. I didn't know the manga series before. but it seems the anime series is the third longest running anime series to date and has 2082 episodes. For reference, at the time of recording, One Piece has a bit over 1100 episodes, so just around half as many as Ojarumaru. The game looks very gag manga-like. The presentation is really nice. The focus is around the dialogues and the wacky characters, and they really put the effort into their cutscenes with them. The music is fine too. I think it is a very cool and unique style. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay-wise, the game is a bit lacking. It is really more like reading the manga or watching an episode. There is not much gameplay. You move around the board game part of the game, talk to the people, and from time to time you play very basic minigames. There are some other people on the board running around just like you do, but I didn't see any interaction. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think this game is really just something for big fans of Ojarumaru. And even then I cannot imagine someone playing that game for long. It is cool and unique, but I think it is enough knowing that it exists. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Tasmania 2, or in the PAL regions just known as Tasmania on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Beam Software and released in 1993 in the PAL regions and 4 years later, in 1997, in North America. It is a platformer starring the Tasmanian Devil as the main character. 2 crocodiles try to catch you and you escape their traps and kill all living things you see on the way as a deadly twister. The presentation of the game is very easy. The backgrounds are simple and the music track, well I'm happy there is one, is repeating itself often. The sprites look okay, but not much more. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fast-paced. From the basic idea, it's a bit like a Sonic game. You can make the typical twister, and in that time you are nearly invincible and super fast. In that moment the game is really fun. The problem is just that you have an energy bar to use that ability, and the amount of time you can use it is low. You can only regenerate it with items you find on the way, and these appear seldom. So the main ability, and the thing that makes the game fun, you're scared to use because for some jumps you seem to need it. The boss fights additionally have the big problem that you cannot really see if you made a hit, you just have to guess. A lot of problems in that game. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It has too many problems in the gameplay to be fun, and the presentation is also below average. Sorry Tasmanian Devil, you deserve better. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Dig Dug on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by No Production and released in North America and the PAL regions in 1992. It is a port of the arcade game Dig Dug that released in 1982. This game showed me that Quest Fantasy Challenge for the Game Boy Color that we reviewed was from the concept just a cheap copy of Dig Dug. Dig Dug works in the same way. You dig around and kill all the enemies in a level, or, depending on the game mode, find keys in the level. You can kill enemies by letting heavy objects fall on them or by inflating them with air until they explode. That sounds like a horrible way to die. The presentation of the game is very simple. The dirt has some different textures, but that's about it from the difference between levels. There are only 2 kinds of enemies, and that's it. The background music is also repeating itself quickly, but it is getting faster during a level. The presentation might be close to the arcade, but it's nothing special. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine. You run around the level and kill the enemies. Some levels, in which you need to find the keys, have a bit challenging layouts, but in general the game is, well, very arcade-like obviously. It works and it is fun, but not that much. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a fine arcade game, but nothing that is really catching me today. I actually like Quest Fantasy Challenge more. I have to admit that it's just a cheap copy and that's 17 years after the original arcade game, but it is more fun. Especially because the enemies in Dig Dug fly so easily through the dirt. In Quest Fantasy Challenge, I can and have to make the way for them, and most of the enemies cannot just float through the dirt. That is more fun and at least a bit strategic. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Pinball Tycoon on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ignition Entertainment and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. From the title I first thought it would be a game where you build and manage a pinball hall, and was quite excited, but no. It is a very bad pinball game with 4 tables that all have a gold money theme. The game looks extremely shitty, and we talk about a Game Boy Advance game. The table backgrounds are just some pixelated mess and just an image. Nothing happens on the table besides some lights lighting up from time to time. The whole thing is so bad it makes me angry. The ball has no animations, and the worst thing is nothing that interacts with the ball has any impact. There are no animations for bouncers getting touched or anything like that. It is like a still image. Worse than games that released years before. The sound also sucks. The background music is okay. I give the presentation 0.5 out of 5 points. The problems with the presentation carry over to the gameplay. You feel nothing but disappointment when playing this game. No impact, and that in a pinball game. There is no fun. Nothing. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I'm a big fan of pinball in real life and good digital pinball games, but this is a disgrace of pinball. I hope the people of Ignition Entertainment are ashamed of their work. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Agassi Tennis Generation on Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Agra Pacific and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. The game released in different versions on many consoles. It is, like the title suggests, a tennis game. You play in quick matches, arcade or championship mode in single and double tennis games against the computer or each other. The presentation of the game is not very good. The sprites for the characters look a bit weird. They are realistic and kind of look like pictures, but too pixelated. The animations are really stiff too, and the transitions between them is bad. Everything else besides the sprites look even worse. The stadium, referee and audience is literally just a background picture with no animations. The ball is most of the time just 5 pixels, without any animations. There's no background music during the matches and just a few repeating sound effects. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is bad too. No matter what mode you play, it's all the same. Tennis matches. Which would be fine if they would be good, but sadly they're not. The animations, and with that the complete feeling, is off. Sometimes you don't even touch the ball and it still counts as a hit, and sometimes the ball travels right through you. The game feels cheap. I give the game 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There are so many better tennis games. Try out Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color if you're looking for one. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Tokyo Senki Aiju Retsuden on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Human Entertainment and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. It is a grand strategy game in which you try to conquer all the other kingdoms, I guess? I don't speak Japanese and I tried to translate everything for this review, but it was not so easy. What I understood is that it is a grand strategy game in which multiple kingdoms fight against each other trying to conquer the rest. This game looks rather unspectacular, but not bad. I think especially for the original Game Boy it looks quite good. The overall map is easy recognizable and the screens are clear. The background music is nice and sounds epic. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is quite deep for a Game Boy game. Every year has multiple different phases. In the first one you can develop your country and explore the surroundings to find new heroes. In the second phase you can hire soldiers, and in the third one you can attack the neighboring cities. Since I'm not fluent in Japanese, I have trouble judging the complexity of the game. What I understood impressed me. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You really need to understand Japanese to know what's happening. The game is reminding me of Nobunaga's Ambition on the Game Boy, but it looks way better. So I'm a bit sad that I cannot understand more what is happening. Maybe someday we do a translation patch for it. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Back from the Sewers, or in Europe known as Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Konami and released in 1991 and 1992 in North America, Japan and the PAL regions. It is a beat-em-up game with platform elements starring the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it is the second of 3 Game Boy Ninja Turtles games. The game looks quite nice. Already the main menu has some nice going underground animation, and the backgrounds and sprites look well done and very recognizable. Additionally, there's some great background music, like a remix of the main theme. Since there are no colors, it is hard to see the difference of the turtles besides the weapons. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is a bit below average. It is a standard beat 'em up with 4 different playable characters, the 4 turtles. Sadly, the difference in the playstyles between them is minimal, and the game is missing some of the basic beat-em-up things like throwing enemies and special moves. The enemies are respawning very quickly, which can be quite annoying. There are boss fights, special levels, and different style of levels like skateboard levels, so there's some variety in the levels, but the main fighting system is sadly feeling a bit weak. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. It is an okay beat-em-up game, but also not too special. The fighting doesn't have the right kind of pow, especially because the enemies normally die in one hit, so there are no combinations or anything like that. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review True Balls on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Paragon 5 and released 2001 exclusively in North America. It is a Tetris-like puzzler game in which you need to rotate balls to get a minimum of 4 balls of the same color together to make them disappear. The game is saved by a password system. The presentation of the game is very bad. The game itself just uses half the screen and is extremely simple. The other half of the screen is used for a pixelated mess representing famous sightseeing objects. The main menu looks like someone drew it in paint, and the cover of the game looks like a funny picture of someone's physics teacher. The biggest joke, maybe tied with the title screen, is the "well done" or "try again" text that float one time over the screen at the end of a level. The only positive part about the presentation is that there is background music, which often repeats itself and is not very inspiring, but at least there is some. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is okay. The basic idea of the puzzler with the rotating mechanic is not so innovative or interesting, but fine. The levels are mainly more puzzles than a Tetris, for example. You really have to look at the layout first and think a moment, otherwise you're left with 2 balls of one color that cannot be destroyed anymore. A weird decision for such a thinking puzzle game is a very limited number of lives that require you to put a password in to continue back at the level. Unnecessary and annoying. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, it sucks. It tries to be Tetris, but is missing the fun and addictiveness of Tetris. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Lucky Luke Desperado Train on the Game Boy Color. This game was released 2000 and released exclusively in the PAL regions. Like the title suggests, it is a game about the cowboy that shoots faster than its own shadow, Lucky Luke. The game is in most parts a platform or shoot 'em up game, but also has a lot of minigames like a gallery shooter, minecart races, boat driving, throwing bones and more. The game looks quite good. Every aspect of the game, the music, UI and so on, you can see the Cowboys theme coming through. The sprites and backgrounds look quite good too, and I like the background music. The foreground, on the other hand, can look a bit weird. In the platform levels, they use kind of a parallaxing effect when you move, so that the foreground moves faster than the background. That can be a cool effect, but in this case the foreground moves so fast that it feels a bit like the city is driving away. Still, the game looks good, and I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, it feels a bit like the game is trying too many things at the same time, but it's not making anything very good. The platformer levels feel fine, and I like that there's a climbing mechanic. The shooting, on the other hand, feels not very good. I needed a moment to realize that my shoots are actually hitting the enemy, because it looks like they dodged away. So most minigames are very simple and often simply bad. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an okay platformer, but nothing very impressive. Maybe a hardcore Lucky Luke fan finds the patience to play through it, but for the rest, there's nothing special. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Tetris 2 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Nintendo and Tosi and released 1993 and 1994 everywhere. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added better music and colors. This game is the official successor of Tetris and is following a similar game style, but with some big changes. This time the blocks have different colors, and you destroy blocks not by making a full line, but by having a horizontal or vertical line of at least 3 blocks with the same color. The goal in every round is to destroy the pulsating orbs that are placed before. There are 2 game modes, one where you try to survive as long as you can, and one puzzle mode in which you try to beat the level with the least blocks. The game looks nice and clean. The presentation is doing nothing surprising, but it's doing its job. There is some nice background music and the game screen is clear. The only small issue with the presentation is that it can be hard to recognize the different colors of the blocks. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay works good. The new concepts make sense and they give a very different feeling than the original Tetris. Which is not necessarily a good thing, but just looking at Tetris 2 for itself, it is a good puzzler with a solid gameplay. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Tetris 2 is a good puzzler and worth your time if you're tired of the original. In many ways the game feels like the logical successor. There are more block variations, a new, more complicated way to destroy the blocks, and new objectives with the orbs. I still think Tetris 1 is better. The beauty of Tetris is because it is simple. So the successor is, at least for me, not nearly as good as Tetris. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Hoyle Card Games on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Sandbox Interactive and released 2000 exclusively in North America. The game is a collection of 14 different card games, for example Crazy Eights, Cribbage, Solitaire, Go Fish and War. The game is looking really good. The cards are clear to see and every game has some unique background and background music. The games even have little animations, like a fish jumping out of the water in Go Fish or the tanks fighting in War. There are additionally a lot of playable and enemy characters. They are just different pictures, but still. They went with the presentation way further than they had to for the gameplay and I appreciate that. The only thing that is really not well presented is a way too long help text for the games. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you expect. There are a lot of card games and you can play them against a computer, hold seat or with link cable. The game plays as intended. I don't have anything else to say. The amount of different games is good, but nothing unexpected. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? If you want to play card games on the Game Boy Color, yes. It is exactly that. The card games on the Game Boy Color. There are no surprises or interesting changes, so if you want, for some reason, play that card game on the Game Boy Color, that game is great for you. But for the rest, there's nothing to discover. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pocahontas on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Blackpool Software and released in 1996 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a platformer puzzler game in the style of Prince of Persia and is based on the Disney movie Pocahontas. You can switch between Pocahontas and the raccoon Miko to solve puzzles and save all the animals. The presentation is very simple. The backgrounds are mostly just simple white or black blocks with some trees on it. Without knowing the movie, I couldn't even say in which kind of area or biome the game plays. The sprite looks okay, but the animations all feel a bit clunky and slow. Sometimes it's hard to see where you can climb up, and the interactable objects look often out of place. The only positive part about the presentation is the Game Boy versions of Colors of the Wind. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is even worse than the presentation. You just get thrown into the game, no objective, no story, nothing. And then you run around and try to find things. The puzzles are mostly pushing blocks, and that's it. The controls feel very bad and the whole thing is no fun. The running around and jumping is just awkward, and the switching mechanic between Pocahontas and Miko, which is the only interesting thing the game has, is mostly pointless. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game sucks. A lot. I'm a big Disney fan, but I have the feeling Blackpool Software is not. Otherwise, I would have put a little bit more effort into that. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Magical Tetris Challenge, also known as Tetris Adventure Susumi Miketo Nakamatachi in Japan, on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Capcom and is a Tetris game starring Mickey Mouse and his friends. The game is not only offering classic Tetris, but in total 7 different game modes and a story mode, in which you need to finish certain challenges in the different modes to earn coins and win the game. The game looks really good, everything is colorful and the music is fine too. Since it is a Tetris game, the basic layout is what you expect. You can additionally see the character you play in the corner doing some movements. That can be a bit distracting, to be honest. And the story mode is also an overworld, which looks easy but does its job fine. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, I think that is one of the best Tetris games of all times. It has a lot of different game modes, like a versus or challenger mode, there's a story mode, the controls feel good, everything feels right about the game. In the story mode, the different playable characters need to get different coins, so there's some replayability there too. That feels like the perfect Tetris game. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is Tetris in one of its best forms. It is great. Go play it. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Quiz Sekai Warschau by Shobai on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Sun-L and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. It is a quiz game based on a Japanese TV show. The presentation of the game is quite nice. They took some effort to make different characters and a little start cutscene. The design of the quiz itself is rather simple, but it's doing its job fine. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you would expect. It is a quiz game, and with that the basic gameplay is clear. They ask questions and you answer. It was a bit hard for me since the questions are timed against the NPC player and I needed some time to translate them. I didn't see anything special from a gameplay part. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You really need to speak Japanese to answer the questions on time, but even if you do, there's nothing very interesting. It is a standard quiz game. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Calciobit on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by ParityBit and released 2006 exclusively in Japan. It is a football manager game. You manage your club, take care of the training of your players, set the formation, and then watch as the NPC battle it out. The presentation of the game is okay. The game looks cute, and during the matches there are 22 little figures running around, which looks not bad. The menus, on the other hand, look not very good. Everything besides the matches themselves is very basic. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is a management game that doesn't take itself too serious. The training plan works with cards you get during the games, and the most management aspects are quite light-hearted and simplified. On the other hand, there's nothing wacky or funny happening during the matches or anything like that. So it is a simplified management game, but the matches are slow and a bit boring. That gives the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game doesn't find the right balance between serious and not. The most management aspects are too simple, and there's nothing to replace the complexity that is lost. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Doraemon no Study Boy Cuckoo Game on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Shogakukan and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is a mathematic learning game starring Doraemon and is focusing on the multiplication table from 1 to 9. The presentation of the game is bad. The menus look weird, the background music sounds like it's broken, and the minigames have no redeeming parts about them either. There are a lot of negative things to say about the presentation, but not many positive things. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is multiplication games. Sometimes you need to press the right results of the calculation, and sometimes you need to write the right number for the calculation. The game doesn't have much variety. The gameplay is not very good, but I'm also not the target audience, so it's a bit hard to judge. I do think they could have put more efforts into these minigames. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Maybe if you have strong problems with your multiplication tables from 1 to 9, but if you have a question in that range, just write in the comments and we figure it out together. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we reviewed The Incredibles on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Helix and released 2004 everywhere. The game is using a localized name in every region. It is a beat-em-up game starring The Incredibles. You play mostly Mr. Incredible, run through the levels and destroy a lot of enemies on the way. The game is saved by a password system. I really like the presentation of the game. The animations of the characters look great and have a sense of humor to them. The backgrounds, especially in the city, look very good. Sadly, the background later in the jungle is repeating itself a bit often. The story is told with pictures of the movie, which is a bit cheap. The music comes from the movie too and is very good. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The problem of the game is the gameplay. You only have one real character, Mr. Incredible. The other playable characters are more like mini-games, and Mr. Incredible doesn't have so interesting moves. The whole fighting system has a problem that it's not very interesting. It feels good for the first 2 minutes, but then it just feels like a drag. There's nothing interesting to do and the fights take forever because a lot of enemies spawn. After the fight you go to meters and another bunch of enemies spawn. The boss fights are also repeating quickly and are very boring. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, sadly not. In the first moment I thought the game would be good, but every minute it got harder and harder to play that game. It is not incredible. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Shaman King, Chosen, Senjiria, Ketsu, Memera-hen and Fumbari-hen on the Game Boy Color. These games were developed by Studio Saisensen and released simultaneously 2001 exclusively in Japan. There are 2 versions of the same game that just have different playable characters. The game is a card game based on the manga and anime Shaman King. You play different scenarios with the 3 playable characters of the version that you have. The presentation of the game is not great. The game is very text heavy and the dialogues are presented in a boring style with just a few different pixelated backgrounds and the always same faces of the people talking. I had to press A many times until I finally could play the card game. The card game itself looks okay, but not very impressive. You can see everything important, so the gameplay is not much impacted by the presentation, but the presentation itself is not very good. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is sadly just in Japanese, but I tried to figure the rules of the game out with some translation software. You can have up to 2 shamans and they can have a maximum of 3 spirits. You can buff these spirits with different cards and use them to attack the enemy spirits or shaman. The moment the enemy shamans have 0 life points, you win the game. The gameplay is okay, but not much more. Maybe if you go deeper in the game, there are more strategic options, but I found myself and my decisions to be limited. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. You really need to speak Japanese to understand, and even then the game has too much dialogue and too less card games. Maybe fans of the card game can enjoy it, but without knowing the rules it is hard. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Hunter x Hunter, Hunter no Keifu on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Konami and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is well, it's hard to describe what it really is. A tactical RPG maybe? It is based on the manga and anime Hunter x Hunter. The game is heavily relying on text and cutscenes, and the real gameplay parts of it are weird. You are in one map with the other hunters, and you can always choose 2 actions to do in one turn, like walking, talking, or searching for things. You and the others do the actions at the same time. The presentation of the game is mixed. The cutscenes and dialogues look quite good. They have some nice backgrounds and the talking characters actually have some animations for moving their eyes and mouths whenever they talk. That is done nicely. The real playing parts on the other hand look very simple and not very good. Additionally, the game looks often a little bit buggy. Whenever people run into each other, they kind of port back to their original position. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay part is extremely bad. I have no idea who thought this would be fun. You choose your actions and then you do them and walk, for example. But the game is so slow that it's painful to do anything. The first level is literally just running a marathon and you walk for like 10 minutes and nothing else happens. Just choosing walk and walk. Next turn. That is all. In the next level you need to find 2 items on the floor and the problems are the same. There's nearly nothing I would call gameplay. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I don't even know if I would call it a game. I have no idea what this is. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Splits, on Japan known as Splits Nigari 15 game on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Enigma Variations and released in 1993. It is a puzzle game. The game uses a typical sliding puzzle as a main gameplay, but with some funny twists. You need to get the tiles first, and there are obstacles like opening and closing doors on the walls, where tiles can fly through, or tiles that don't belong to the pictures that you need to get rid of. The presentation of the game is very basic. You have a picture of a famous person as a background, and that is it. There's not much more presentation than this. There is a little start cutscene and some background music, but not much more to say. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic too. It is a sliding puzzle game that is in every second video game. The obstacles are more like a little bit annoying and that is it. They are not game changing in any way. The game is more like a mini game than a full game. Sometimes some annoying things happen, like a bomb that you need to get rid of in a certain time or you will lose 1 life. That is all the gameplay there is. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not interesting in any way. This sliding puzzle you will see in so many video games already, and this game offers nothing more besides being even more annoying than the puzzle normally is. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Mina no Soft series, Mina no Mahjong, the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by MTO and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. It is a mahjong game, not like Windows Solitaire Mahjong, but like the real mahjong. You can play in a versus or in a tournament mode against the NPC. I'm not a huge fan of the presentation. The playable and enemy characters look fine and there's some okay background music, but the stones themselves look very pixelated. They went with a realistic look for them, but weren't able to present that in a good resolution, and the end result is a mess. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, there's not much to say. It is a mahjong game with a few different modes that all don't change too much. The game itself is doing everything fine. There's not much positive or negative to say. It does its job, but nothing more. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I like mahjong, but I don't really like the presentation of this one. Since there are so many mahjong games on the Game Boy Advance, I'm sure we will find a better one. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pocket Racing, on Japan known as Pocket GT on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by MTO and released 1999 in Japan and 2000 in the PAL regions. It is an arcade-style racing game in which you drive on different tracks against NPCs or against the time. You can choose between different cars and tune them with the parts you unlock from driving the races. The presentation of the game is okay. Everything is in a cartoony style, and both the backgrounds and streets of the courses have an easy look. The cars are also nothing special. The transition between the sprites when you do a curve is very visible, and in the beginning the sprite of the car is split in the middle, looking quite buggy. There is no background music during the races, just a monotonous engine sound. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay of the game is average. It's a typical arcade racer. You start at the last position, and if you drive good, you will from time to time overtake another car. The tuning system with set improvements is nice but very basic. The whole gameplay is exactly that. Basic. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The whole game is a very average experience. There are better looking and feeling games with the exact same style, like V-Rally Championship Edition. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Kamen Rider SD Hashire Mighty Riders on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Yukata and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. It is a top-down motorcycle racer game in which you avoid obstacles, kick your enemies and try to make it to the goal without exploding. To do that you play in a team of 3 or a single fly bug thing and play Rally or Grand Prix mode. Both modes are gameplay-wise identically. In the team of 3, every rider does their own level and they are not at the same time on the course. The presentation of the game is not bad but very basic. It is a top-down view and the course have some little background elements like streets or jets. The cover of the game looks very cool and the game has even in the races background music. That is, somehow, quite rare for such racing games. The special items you can get during the race look very easy. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points, mainly because of the background music and the cool cover. The gameplay is exactly what you would expect from such a game. You can accelerate or kick the enemy out of the way, which sounds cooler than it is, and you avoid the obstacles to not reach 0 life points. Unlike many games, here it is not so much about the placement in the race, but rather to survive until the end. That makes the other drivers more to obstacles that can cost HP than really competing racers. Something a bit more unique is the ability to hide the UI to see more of the course, and that you can move the camera forward and backwards to see a bit further ahead or behind you. There are cool quality of life features that not many games of that kind think of in the Game Boy era. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is an okay racer, but really not more. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Choo Choo Rocket on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sonic Team and released 2001 everywhere. The goal of the game is to bring as much mice as possible in the time limit to your own rocket. The mice run along the walls on the levels, and with arrows that you can place on the ground you can control their movements. The moment they step on an arrow they change their direction. You can not only control the mice in that way, but also your enemies, like the cats that you need to keep away from your mice. The presentation of the game is simple but cute. The mice and cats look fine, but besides that there's not much to see. The overall theme of the game is nice though. Very cool is that you can replace the mice with your own drawings and even gives that drawing some animations. The background music is fine, but not too special. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Judging the gameplay is a little hard for me, because the game has a very strong focus on multiplayer, with the ability to play with multiple person with only one cartridge. Sadly, I have no friends, so I can only judge the single player of the game. The single player is fine, but not too special. You can play different challenges to get all the mice in the rockets in a certain time, or to get them all in the rocket with a limited amount of arrows. These challenges are fun, but it's clearly not the focus. I give the single player gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only multiplayer. I can imagine this game being a lot of fun in multiplayer, but in single player the puzzles and challenges will not keep you engaged for long. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today review Frogger Advance, The Great Quest on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by KCEA and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. This game is starring Frogger, but it is not a Frogger-like game, but a platformer. You are Frogger and you're searching in a medieval fantasy world for a princess to kiss you so that you can turn into a beautiful prince. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks okay-ish. Everything looks a bit pixelated. All the sprites look a bit like a Donkey Kong Country style. So like they used pre-rendered 3D images for the sprites, just in worse. The backgrounds and foreground are also looking average at best. I am not a huge fan of the presentation of the game. The cutscenes telling the story are just images with some text, but without any effort. The music is okay. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is the average platformer. You can jump and attack, and every few levels you get some upgrades like a double jump or a stronger attack. Nothing creative to be found here. The enemies are mostly just standing or walking around and are not really reacting to you. On the positive side, you can attack in multiple directions and the levels don't use bottomless pits if you fall down, but often have some alternative way or way back to the platform. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. But it is a very average platformer that, for no reason whatsoever, has Frogger as the main character. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today review Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, on Japan known as Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Tosi and released 1999 in Japan and 2000 in North America. It is a collection of the two NES games Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 with small changes. These two games are classic JRPG games. Dragon Quest 1 released 1986 in Japan and Dragon Quest 2 1987. These games established a lot of features that JRPG games got known for. The story of the first one is very simple. An evil dragon stole the Orb of Light and now monsters roam the land. Sometime after that, the dragon even kidnaps the princess. Now it's your task to defeat the dragon and save the princess. In the second game, the story takes place 100 years after the events of the first one and tells the story of 3 of the hero's descendants. The game looks fine. The presentation is quite simple. It is a typical JRPG style and much of the overworld looks a bit too simple, especially the buildings. It is not bad, but also not outstanding good in any way. The music on the other hand is great and the game does have cutscenes. The combat is the typical seeing the enemies from the front view. What I don't understand is why the first game has a nice background in that fighting scenes and the second game has nothing. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is exactly what you would expect. You go out, you grind your levels, you find and buy better equipment to better grind enemies, and from time to time you find more party members. After that you find the items you need and go defeat the boss. Nothing special here. The typical genre problems like high encounter rates are here too, and the games are grind heavy. Sadly, the second game got directly more annoying than the first in terms of battle. The encounter rate seems to be higher, and from the beginning there are multiple enemies which drags the fight out. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just for genre fans. These games are old JRPGs, that means grinding, grinding, grinding. But if you like that, you will find solid games that spawned a franchise that is still going strong today. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Dinotopia, the Time Stone Pirates on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by RFX Interactive and released 2002 in North America and Europe. It is a platformer in which you need to help the dinosaurs against the evil pirates. The pirates stole the eggs of the T-Rex and you need to bring them back. But maybe that is just distraction for a way bigger heist. In every level you need to find some item and go to the end of the levels. The pirates will try to stop you by rubbing their big bellies on you. So evil. The game looks not bad. The sprites are nice and the backgrounds are good too. The levels have all different background tracks that repeat a bit too quickly but are not bad in total. I like the variety in enemies. Sometimes the game can look quite buggy when grabbing onto a ledge, since the game lets you grab even in the middle of a platform. Sadly, all the story is presented very poorly. From time to time a friend of you comes around with a dinosaur to explain the plot points in a boring dialogue. That is all the presentation for the story there is. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic. It is a platform. You have an attack to defeat the pirates and there is a climbing system, so that is both good, but besides that there is nothing special. The most levels feel very similar to each other, and the levels that are more like minigames are worse. The gameplay is basic, but it works. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is actually better than I expected from the title, but there's still no real reason to play it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review The Real Ghostbusters, Garfield's Labyrinth, and Mickey Mouse 4 Mahuno Labyrinth on the original Game Boy. While that might sound like a weird combination of games at first, it is actually all the same game. They just swapped some sprites like the protagonist and some stuff like Extra Life and changed the game like this for each region. North America got The Real Ghostbusters, the PAL regions Garfield's Labyrinth, and Japan Mickey Mouse 4 Mahuno Labyrinth. This game was developed by Kotobuki Systems and released 1993. It is a puzzler platformer in which you need to find all the little stars in a level to get a magical key to open the door to the next level. The presentation of the game is, no matter what version, very simple. The sprites look okay, but not more, and the presentation of the level is really basic too. The music is okay, especially in the Ghostbusters version, because there you get the main theme in a Game Boy version, which is quite cool. Obviously the presentation of the game does not matter for the gameplay at all, otherwise replacing the characters wouldn't have been possible. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic too. Collect stars, open door, repeat. The only special thing this game has is the ability to destroy some blocks in the levels. There the challenge is to think about when to destroy what blocks so that the stars are not getting unreachable. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is just an interesting game because of the wild changes in the localization, and that's it. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Nikan Birotomon Club on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by IMAX and released 1998 exclusively in Japan. The genre of the game is a simulator maybe? Hard to describe, but to me it felt like a combination of Tamagotchi and phone simulator for children that don't have a phone yet. The presentation of the game sucks. There are some scribbled faces of people talking to you and that's it. That faces are even similar to each other. Besides that, there's just text. No one put an effort in that. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. I played the game quite long but didn't really find gameplay. You can call people or write some SMS, and that's it. It feels like there should be minigames, but I couldn't find them. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I don't think the target audience for that game, which I guess is people with no phones that want to act like they have one, still exists. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Harvest Moon 3, on Japan known as Pukojo Monogatari GB3 Boy Meets Girl on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Victor Interactive Software and released 2000 in Japan and 2001 in North America. It is a typical Harvest Moon and with that farming game. The story takes place after Harvest Moon 2 and brings you to a new farm on an island. There you don't farm alone, but together with a partner. You can choose in the beginning if you are a male or female character, and your partner will be the other gender. While the characters play similar, they don't play the same. The male character has more energy and the female more starting money. As an NPC, the male character will take over watering the plants and the female taking care of the animals. The game looks very nice. I like the style, everything is colorful and brings a good mood. There's a lot of small details, like a mole coming out when you plow the dirt. The sprites look good and have nice animations for sprinting and jumping over things, for example. The music is complementing the graphical presentation and brings a relaxed mood. Sadly, the map of the game is not connected but has a small menu. The menu looks cute and has different weather effects, but I still think a connected map would have been better. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise, the game does a lot of things right. You can sprint, jump over objects, and the menus are very clean. On the other hand, the game is limited by the controls of the Game Boy Color. There are just 2 buttons, so there's no quick change between tools, which would have been very useful. The farm is also a bit confusing from the layout, and I don't like that the island with the farm has no shop and you need to go to the main island to buy things, which is just possible on 2 weekdays. The differences between male and female characters are a nice idea, but the decision that the game of the female character ends after marriage is interesting, but not good. Still, all the negatives are small things. The main gameplay of making the farm better and getting more and more rich with farming is great. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Harvest Moon is a classic, and that for a good reason. That is a fun, cozy game. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review the Battle of Olympus on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Radical Entertainment and released exclusively in the PAL regions in 1993. The game has the Greek mythology as a setting and is from the playstyle very similar to The Legend of Zelda 2, just in a bit worse. Everything is a bit confusing to navigate, not very intuitive, and not feeling so good. The game is saved by an unnecessary long password system. The game looks okay, the sprites are fine and the backgrounds are okay too. The music is quickly repetitive, but there is background music, which is nice. Sadly, not only the music is very repetitive, but the whole presentation. The sprites of the NPC repeat quickly, the buildings look all the same, and the backgrounds too. It gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is just like the presentation, a bit boring. It is very clearly inspired by The Legend of Zelda 2, but kind of worse in every way. The fighting system is just button mashing, and orientation in the world is very difficult. The whole game is hard to play. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, it is bad. If you want to play a game that style, take Legend of Zelda 2. I'm not sure why to even copy that principle, it is not the most popular Legend of Zelda game. I give the game overall 1.5 out of 5 points. Today review No 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 Puzzle Charlian on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Creatures Inc. and released exclusively in Japan in 2005. It is a puzzler game which you always move around 4 tiles and solve different puzzles with that principle. The game has a unique and I think very cool style. Everything's colorful and a bit stupid. The characters look funny, the music is good, and there's even a start cutscene. The principle of the puzzle is visually good explained. I didn't need to translate anything to understand how the game's played. It is not the most complex or impressive graphics, but I like the consistent style of the game. It reminded me a bit of the Katamari series. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is lacking. The principle of the puzzles is always the same. There's just one kind of puzzle, shifting around the tiles. That is used to do different things, like making way for the little figure while it walks, or cooking with getting food in black holes. Yeah, that's how I cook at home too. But the principle is getting old quickly, and the only thing you find with playing the game more is doing the same stuff, just faster. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Sadly, the nice presentation of the game is getting held back by the repetitive and a bit boring gameplay. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review The Hobbit, the prelude to The Lord of the Rings, or in Japan known as Hobbit no Bokken, Lord of the Ring Hajimari no Monogatari on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sapphire and released 2003. It is an puzzler action RPG game that is following the story of Bilbo Baggins and the dwarves on their quest to get back the Erebor from the dragon smoke. The style of the game reminds me a lot of Legend of Zelda. You play Bilbo Baggins in an isometric view and you solve puzzles and fight against evil monsters like wasps, bugs and big wasps. The presentation of the game is doing a lot of things right. It is a cozy, magical atmosphere that is highlighted by the music and the colorful sprites. While not really impressive, the presentation does set the right mood for the game. The sprites can, especially during movement, look a bit weird, but most of the time the game is looking fine. I like the map of Bilbo's journey that is even visible from the main menu. The presentation is doing its job, but not much more. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Who would have known that Bilbo's adventure is mainly pushing blocks to the conveniently marked spaces to make new ways to climb? Not long ago I read The Hobbit and I don't remember him writing about all that block pushing. The puzzles in the game are very repetitive, and while the game clearly took inspiration from the Legend of Zelda games, something that was there from Zelda 1 is missing: the open world. So you have to solve the puzzles and you always know what to do because you didn't miss an item or anything like that. There is no backtracking. That makes the puzzle solving so much easier, and with the puzzle designs of this game, quite boring. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a not very inspired Legend of Zelda clone that is retelling The Hobbit. I like The Hobbit, but this game is sadly boring. I'm sorry, Bilbo Baggins Bilbo Baggins the block pusher. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by PAX Softtonica and released in 1999. The game released on multiple consoles like PC, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast and of course the Game Boy Color, which is the version we are looking at. It was even not so long ago released for PlayStation 4 and Switch. The game is a Star Wars game that focuses on the pod racing that we see in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You play as one of many pod racers and race a 1v1 against another one on different courses. Whenever you beat an opponent, you unlock that racer too. The racers have different stats, like max speed, acceleration, body strength and more. There is no real story mode, just driving against different racers on the various planets. The game looks fine. The pod racers are colorful and look different enough to recognize them. The tracks are all a bit different too, which is mainly the colors they use. There's even a very short start cutscene. The real star of the presentation is the main track, which is a version of the theme of the first film and a forward-pushing version. That song is great, but also the only real music there is. Especially during the races, the background music is missing. There's just an annoying engine sound and that's it. The whole presentation has the problem that it is good, but too less variation. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The game always feels fast. That is something very important for a pod racer game, but not so easy to achieve. It needs to feel fast, but at the same time not unfair when it comes to curves on the track. The game is doing that really good. While the gameplay feels good, the same problem as the presentation occurs here too. There's not much variation. There is no story mode or upgrade system for the racers or anything like that. You can race and unlock the other drivers, but there's not much long-term motivation, especially because the races feel too similar. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. Without nostalgia for it, I wouldn't recommend it. But it is not a bad game. I was positively surprised by it. It is fun, just not for long. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Titus the Fox to Marrakesh and Back on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Acra Pacific and released in 1993 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a port of the Amiga, Atari and MS-DOS game with the same title. It is a platformer in which you play a fox that, based on the title, is going to Marrakesh and back. I have no idea why, because the Game Boy version has no story whatsoever. The levels just start. You can walk, crawl, jump and throw objects to defend yourself against literally everyone. Even the homeless people on the street hate you so much that they throw their precious bottles at you. The presentation of the game is a mixed bag. The sprites have a white outline, which is unusual and can look quite good. The backgrounds are very detailed and very dark, so the white outlines make sense. The problem is the limitations of the Game Boy. The backgrounds are very detailed, too much detail. Just with the 4 colors it gets hard to recognize what is what, and the backgrounds are often just too much, making it hard to see the important parts. The game is also heavily relying on sprite flicker, and that already with not so many sprites on the screen. And I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very boring. You don't have many options, you just walk and jump. There are always the same 2 objects you can pick up and throw at the enemies, but that is all. It looks like you should be able to stand on them, which is apparently possible in the original versions, but in this port you cannot, making them just a pointless and annoying weapon. The level design is also very boring and often relying on invisible buttons, which I think is weak. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a not very good platformer. I never tried the original. Maybe it is fun, but this port here for sure not. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Mass Patrol, the Kleptoid threat on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by GBA Interactive and released 2007 exclusively in North America. It is a mathematic and logic learning game disguised as a space shooter. You get different tasks visible in the top left corner, and you need to shoot asteroids or enemy spaceships based on the right answer to the task. The presentation of the game is doing its job. I'm happy they chose a theme, in this case spaceships, and stick with it. That is not always the case with such learning games. There's also some okay background music. At the same time, the sprites and levels in total all look a bit bad. It all looks like it's not fitting perfectly together, and things like the spaceship as a cursor to select the mission is a good idea, but the way they did it, it looks cheap. It gives the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is not very exciting. I'm not sure how old the target audience for the game is, because obviously the player needs to be able to read to understand what to do and to do the tasks. But some tasks are like, what is greater, 1 or 8? And I think the most children that are able to read don't need help with that. I think the balancing is a bit off here. The games are always the same, shoot the thing with the right answer on it. There's not much variation in that. The game works, but it is not interesting. Since I'm not the target audience, I want to be nice to the game. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think no one who watches the video here is part of the target audience. And even if you need help to figure out what is greater, 1 or 8, I cannot recommend it. I'm sure there are better learning games out there. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.